Justin. So make sure you're doing all the good things. Once we get a few people in here and have a... I don't have a share button for some reason. Oh, there we go. I'm going to send it to her. I'm going to send it to a lot of people. Boom. Boom. Boom, boom. Let's get some people in here. Good morning. Let's see who's come in this morning. Good morning, Ty here. Good morning, Bad Church. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Lynn Ray. I think I said that right. Hope I did. Good morning, everybody. Well, it's not really morning, I guess. It's afternoon, probably wherever you are. It's 11 here. Yes, it is. It's Decon Q&A with CrystalJae, and pretty soon my esteemed guest will be here, Deconstruction Zone Justin. If you have ever wanted to ask Justin a question, today is the day. This is not a Q&A, Egyptian Christian, to talk to me. It's to talk to Justin, and we'll get to those questions in a little bit once he gets here, and after I get done with some of my questions, then you can come up and ask Justin your questions for him. Hello, I should go check and see who is joining us over on the YouTubes. Oh, I have the sound on. I can't check YouTube yet. I have the sound on because I forgot that I need to do this. I forgot to play the theme song.
It's a brand new day and she's back again. Get yourself a beverage, let's get settled in. It's Decon Q&A with CrystalJae. Hey, 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 all our favorite heathens gathered in one place. All our questions answered.
Yes, he is the man and the legend, Justin.
It's Decon Q&A with CrystalJae. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get ready for the fun. Decon Q&A with CrystalJae.
Good morning, Justin. How are you?
Crystal, I'm great, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. Oh, I gotta fix my little YouTube thing here. It is not set right. Sorry, guys. Sorry, YouTube. You know, it's not a real show for me if I don't screw up YouTube in one way or another. So it's not really Crystal's show without doing that. So you've been here before, so you know the routine. You know what's going to happen here. I'm going to ask you some questions. Then we'll bring up people from the audience to ask you questions, and then we'll play your favorite game, Divine or Decline. Sound good?
It sounds good. Divine or Decline is such a difficult game too, because you're so good at bringing passages that are, well, inventing passages that sound a lot like real passages and grabbing other source material that sounds the same. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. Oh, something happened to all my stuff. Let me hang on 1 second. This is so weird. Hang on 1 second. I don't know why, but I'm gonna have to see if I can get it to come back. Let's see if I can. It's pulling it up right now. You guys, as you join, if you could tap the screen, do the heart me, share it out. I have a gift goal here. I'm going to pin it, send gifts to... You guys know this routine. You're in every chat room with me. So you guys know what to do. Help us push this out into the algorithm. And okay, I got everything back. So we're good to go now. It just,
Perfect.
for some reason, my iPad decided to wipe away every question I had for this morning. All right. What motivated you to take the leap from engineering into full-time streaming?
Yeah, so this is actually a really good question, and like I know I don't get to talk about it a lot, but like I love like spreadsheets and crunching numbers and like they're real. They exist in the real world. Like I know that when I do math, I'm going to get something valuable. So I was literally sitting at my desk and looking at like, okay, how much am I getting paid right now to work for somebody else? And I was getting to the point where I was starting to make enough money online where I was like, if I did this full time, I could make the same amount of money for me. This is something that I'm doing this for me, and I'm building a long-term brand for myself, which means I have flexibility. I don't have to come into the office when I'm told. Like I can be my own boss again. And I used to run a company. I used to own my own business back before I worked for this company, so I was pretty familiar with how to work everything. So I did private engineering contracts. And so for me, it was just a matter of looking at the numbers and saying, yeah, I think I'm at a support level where I could do this full time and still pay all my bills. And that's when I pulled the trigger. So I saved up a little bit of money so that I would have a cushion for if things went south. And then once I hit I already had a predetermined support threshold that I needed, income threshold to make the transition. So when I hit that threshold, I pulled the trigger and that was it.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And it's kind of funny because I did not do well in math in high school for a myriad of reasons. But I do I don't know advanced maths like trigonometry and I don't know any of those advanced maths at all. I'm very sure I could learn them, but I got to an age where I was like, I don't really feel like learning them, so I just didn't. But I do like crunching numbers when it comes to businesses and stuff. I really like doing that's something I enjoy.
Yeah, because it's like it affects something in the real world. And I think that's
Yeah.
the best part about engineering is like you do some math, like but like a lot of my math classes were applied, which means they're like, okay, here's what you need to know. Here's trigonometry one, trigonometry true two, but the textbooks that we got to use were for applied mathematics, which means we were learning real life scenarios where we could use these formulas. So for me, it was kind of exciting, but I did take math classes, like generic math classes prior to that. And boy, they're kind of boring, aren't they? Because you're like, where would I
Yes.
use this in the real world? Why do I care?
They really are, and I don't know. Like I get to a certain age where I do want to learn a lot of things, but I don't know how much time I have left. Do I really want to learn trigonometry instead of like another language? I don't think I do. And there's only so much time to learn all this, and there's only so many things I can learn in a day. So trigonometry is not going to win right now. It's just
Yeah, I don't blame you for that one.
Um, where are you currently at with your book project, and what inspired you to start writing it?
Great question. So the reason why I started writing the book was because I had so many requests for me to document like my arguments for the prophecies. And I was already familiar with some of the books on the market that did the apologetics for these arguments. So I thought it'd be really good to write a book to engage the apologetics and engage people who already wrote on it from the Christian side, but do it from the non-Christian side. And so I'm about 50 or 60% done with it. I took a pause over the summer because my son was with me, but I'm getting back to it this month, and I'm hoping to have it finished by the end of the year, and then be able to shop around for a publisher. It's going to be a reference book, which means you don't have to sit down and read it all the way through. You could like open up the chapter on
That's
Isaiah
awesome.
53 and just read that one chapter. And it's laid out like a reference book. So there's like a section for each chapter of like, okay, here's a breakdown of the Hebrew text and how it gets manipulated by the scribes. here's a breakdown of like what other people were saying about it in antiquity. Here's a breakdown of how Christians are interpreting it, right? And then I also do a breakdown in every chapter. I do a full like exegetical breakdown of the passage from the Old Testament so that you can say, okay, here's how it should actually be read and interpreted when you do a proper exegesis.
Oh, that's really cool. I really like the way you're laying it out because we did talk about it a little bit last time you were on the show. And I like it that it's going to be where I can just go to it for reference and not be a book that I have to sit down and read from page one to the last page, especially because I have ADHD. So it's hard sometimes to read a book for me, but I love books for references. So that's really cool. Right now, I'm taking your cheat sheet and I'm adding tabs to my Bible so that I can
Yeah,
start getting right to the pages and I can be like, what did you just bring up? Jephthah's daughter? Let's go right to it.
that's right. Yeah, tabs are so helpful too if you get them color coded because when you
Yeah,
hit a particular topic, you're like, oh, that topic's the pink tabs. You know what I mean?
that's what I did because, I noticed how you were doing it and I was like, I am getting some different colors. We're going to use different ones for prophecies, contradictions, whatever. So I'm really excited about getting the Bible finally set up that way for me. Um, and yes, if you didn't know, Justin is writing a book. I do not know how this man has time. He is a father. He streams full time. He's writing a book, and he also, does things like guest host with people like me. So I don't know how he's finding time to do it, but he is writing a book. It is not published yet, but you should be looking to it for it in the future. What are your biggest goals for the new nonprofit you just announced that you just launched?
Great question. So I can tell you some of my personal aspirations and some of my numerical aspirations. So I think over, I have a big heart for the community. I want to help people, and there's a lot of people in the community that share in that. And I think one of the struggles that we've had up to this point is we don't have a good way to integrate YouTube to any of the fundraisers. And if you give over YouTube, like using super chats or things like that, then YouTube takes a cut of it, right?
Yeah,
If you and then you pay taxes on it, right? So you got
yeah,
YouTube takes a cut, then the tax man takes a cut, right? So by setting up an actual foundation, a real legitimate 501c3 charity, we can bypass giving half of it to the IRS and to YouTube and or any other platform. And like I do know that you could theoretically give using like the Cash App, the PayPal, that kind of stuff, but those are hard to integrate to the streams, and like people are like clicking around trying to figure out where they're at. It's just easier if you have a live stream that says, "Hey, fundraiser, click here," and then everything donated goes directly to the fund. And then the
right,
great thing about that is we can pay out the fund anything we need to. It's just going to be like a standard, charity fund. So as long as we keep good records, there's not too many limitations on who we can and cannot help. Um, but numerically, so I crunched the numbers on how many dollars have been spent this year so far from people in our community doing fundraisers, and which is how I came up with my numerical goal. So my
mm-hmm.
numerical goal for 2026, everything should be set up and functioning prior to 2026. It takes maybe 60 to 90 days to get approved for the 501c3. My numerical goal is to do $40,000 worth of charity in 2026. That's a strategic number based on what we've done already and based on what I know from doing the paperwork for the charities, which is that once you get above 55 or $50,000 worth of charity transactions, they put you into like a different category of charity, and there's like new requirements. And so I like for the first year we got to keep it under 50. I don't want to do any more paperwork. I don't want to like I don't want the IRS checking us out. So
Oh, so I don't know, man. That might be hard to do under, because
we
we have
yeah,
very giving people in this
we do.
community, and they, you give them a goal and they surpass it every time. So yeah,
So
we should
I'm
tell
really
them it's
excited.
20.
We should. If we tell them 20, they're going to get 30 or 40 for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Um, and plus, we don't
That's
take
really
a cut of it.
exciting.
So like if
No.
like the GoFundMe campaigns, I think most of the GoFundMe campaigns all go to the recipient. I don't think GoFundMe takes any money from it, but like it's you can't really integrate it with YouTube or anything else. So our charity will be fully integrated, and we no one's getting paid to run this thing. We're running this thing. We've got a board of directors. Crystal's on the board of directors. We're running this thing out of our own free time. No one's going to be getting paid out of this. 100% of the proceeds will go to the person who needs it.
That's right. It's very exciting. I'm really excited to be a part of it, and we have already done so much good for so many members of the community. There's times where people don't even know it's all behind the scenes, but there's a lot of people who have been helped this year, and I look forward to being able to help even more now.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped.
Do you see yourself leaning more into scholarship or activism in the deconstruction space?
So personally, I've more or less tried to be somewhere in the middle. I do know here in the next couple months, I'm going to be leaning pretty heavy into scholarship. I've got people getting on the schedule, more interviews with scholars to discuss various topics that I know people in the community are going to be interested in. So I'm trying to lean a little more into the scholarship this fall and leading into next year. As for activism, I feel like there's so many people already doing activism, and I feel like they're so good at it that I sometimes I don't know where I would fall in. Like I don't know where my position would be. So like I want to support everybody who's involved in doing the activism, but I think I've been around long enough to know that like everyone's better off sticking to their wheelhouse. Like I don't know if I'm a good activist. I don't know if I should do politics or lean into political things because it's not really my wheelhouse. And so many people are really good at it, and I'd hate to be a bad representation. But I do know when it comes to Bible and scholarship, that is something that I can do. And so it's kind of one of those stay in your lane situations. I'm trying my best to stay in my lane, but I definitely want to give a voice to the people that are doing the activism because I think they're doing a great job.
And I think you do. I think you make a lot of appearances for who are on that side, and I think it is my belief that starting 5013 is pretty much activism. So I think
I mean,
that
it
you
really
are
is.
doing some activism there. Um, how has your knowledge of Hebrew and Greek shaped the way you deconstruct biblical text?
Such a good question because, like, one of the first things that I did when I was going to Bible college and seminary, when my primary concern was, and I had this concern even when I was a teenager, was that I don't really trust translations. And while there are some scholars, I know enough about the scholars that they disagree amongst themselves. And so I always thought, like, if you want to really know the truth, you need to at least do your own investigation first. So that's why I was so hell-bent on learning the original languages. And so, like, when I'm looking at a text, like, one thing I don't do is I don't fish around to other scholars to see what they said. Now, I'll do that eventually. Goal number one is I go into the text, into the Greek and Hebrew, I do some exegetical work, and I come out with an opinion that makes sense to me. When I do that, then I go and I shop around, I look at what the other scholars are saying, and I see, okay, based on the evidence that I was able to determine, and based on what might be new evidence that I missed from these scholars, does that fundamentally change my position? And sometimes it does. Sometimes I'll do a good exegesis on a passage and I'll think I have a really good answer to a problem, and then I'll read like, a commentary, and like, uh, Craig Kester might say something that I never saw coming. Oh, I completely missed that. I don't know why I didn't think of that, right? But if all you have is the ability to lean on other scholars, I think that it doesn't put you into trouble, but it puts you into trouble when you want to communicate what is true. Because, for example,
Yeah,
if I take you to a Bible passage and I'm saying, well, my interpretation of this Bible passage is true because this scholar told me so, I think that puts you into a weak position. But if you've read the scholars and then you've also done the exegetical work because you know the languages, you can go into it and say, listen, here's my interpretation of the passage. Here's the evidence for why I like this interpretation. And then you can say, and also, I didn't invent this interpretation. Such and such scholar agrees with me on this interpretation. So I think learning the
I like
original
that.
languages, it gives you a leg up. And one of the things, like when I was in seminary, one of the reasons why they want you to learn Greek and Hebrew is because they don't want you to merely look at other people's research. They want you to be equipped to do your own research, to come up with your own conclusions, because the goal of seminary is not to make you memorize theology. The goal of seminary is to teach you to be your own theologian.
That's very cool. I like that. I do not know Greek or Hebrew, but I want to learn. But I do use, the sources that are available to us to check what original Hebrew and Greek. So, and then I have kind of done the same thing because I will often then go look and see what rabbinical scholars have said about whatever it is I'm reading to see if it lines up with what I interpreted it to mean. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. I like that.
And there are scholars, once you get to know them, that specialize in the language itself. So, for example, there's lots of biblical scholars that write commentaries, but then there are some that are like specially trained in languages. So, for example, I had an Old Testament professor, but his
Mhm.
actual graduate degree and PhD was in Semitic languages. He went to Philadelphia and then he went to London, and his specialty was in Semitic languages, right? Which means if I had a question about how to translate something, this was the guy that you should really go to because like he spent his whole life studying just the languages. Whereas there are some Old Testament professors that went a different route. Like there are some Old Testament professors that specialized in like the history of the ancient Near East, but not necessarily the language. So, like you could be an Old Testament professor and have a degree more along the lines of classics than linguistics. And then those are two different questions, right? So like it's important
Right.
to have a list of scholars where you kind of know what their specialty is. It's like
Yeah.
you wouldn't ask your foot doctor about why you're getting migraines.
True.
And
True.
so like if you don't know the languages, you can at least put together like an internal list of like, okay, here's a couple scholars that really spent their life just doing the language stuff. So if I've got a question on the language stuff, let's go to them first.
Okay. That's really cool. That's a good technique. What has been the most rewarding part of going full time in this work?
Good question. Well, I think the most rewarding time, I would say maybe a couple things. I think the most rewarding thing personally is to be able to prioritize your own priorities. So, like when you work for somebody else, your priorities kind of get pushed aside because you have to, like you're a member of a company, you have to work and protect that particular company because you can't, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. But when you work for yourself, you can say, okay, what are my priorities? And you can actually make your priorities front and center. So like if my priority is to do education, that means I can set a schedule now where I do more time doing education, right? So I think the other thing too that it allows me to do, which I really like and I really value, is it's going to allow me to network more with people in the community. I really believe in networking and community. I think we lose that when we deconstruct. I think when we leave the church, often we lose our community. And so I'm hoping that moving forward, I'll have more time to do guest appearances, shows, interviews, do community events, things like that. Because let's be honest, deconstruction could be lonely. And if
Yeah.
there's a way that we can foster community, I certainly would like to help promote that.
I think so. I want to do that too. I think it's really important. I think it's actually the most important work that I've done thus far in my life, other than raising my children. But I think that helping people deconstruct, helping them find each other, be able to find people who understand what they're going through, it's been very important. Let's see. What role do you hope the nonprofit will play in the wider deconstruction community?
That's a good question. So, initially, I started doing the paperwork because I know it would be helpful for my channel to do fundraisers. And I know Benny eventually wanted to do a 501c3 for Deconstruction Junction. And after I talked to Benny, I think what we're going to do is utilize this 501c3 for the community at large. So it seems to be, and we'll probably have to expand our board of directors as necessary when it grows. But it seems to me like right now we've got, once it's approved, we'll have a charity that is going to reach a large audience because it's not like just a charity that is for my channel. The nonprofit is going to be utilized by the Deconstruction Junction as well. So everyone who's part of the Deconstruction Junction is going to have participation within the charity, and then Benny, to be honest, Benny is really going to be the one running half of it
Yeah,
because that's his experience. He's the guy with the specialty. And so
right.
I'm pretty excited about it because it's not, like we'll be able to link it to the Deconstruction Junction website and actually anyone else who has a website, like anyone who streams on
Yeah,
YouTube, they can link to our charity to do a fundraiser. They don't have to make us do a stream. So I think it's going to be really helpful, and I'm working on a couple fundraisers for when it gets approved, so that we can once it's approved, we can start by doing a big fundraiser and get some money put into the charity, so that when people come and say, hey, listen, I lost my job, I really need help, I really need food right now. We don't have to go out and be like, okay, let's see if we can raise the money. The money's already going to be there.
yeah, yeah. I'm really excited about that. There's just so many people who do need help right now, and I want to be able to help all of them. And it's hard. And like you said, I don't think people realize that all of these the Cash App, Venmo, PayPal and stuff, they have to report the money you get too. So when you take that in for somebody and then give them the money, you're really going to pay the taxes on that came in on your account, especially if it's a great deal of money. And so when you're able to donate to a 501c3, you can then actually get a write off on your taxes, which is way better. Way better.
Right. Yes, precisely. And obviously we'll have receipts. Like
Yes.
because of the way things are formatted, we should be able to have some accounting. I have to check into how it works with YouTube. I'm hoping YouTube is the one saving the transactions. There's more that I have to learn about this still yet, but there should be some way to keep a receipt of all the transactions. So if somebody says, "Hey, I donated to this particular fundraiser, can I have a receipt?" We should be able to provide them with a receipt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so, if you had unlimited time and resources, what project would you want to launch next?
Oh man, such a good question. Okay, so if I had truly unlimited time and resources, I think the project that I would next launch would probably be a library initiative. So, and I don't think I've talked to anybody about this, and I don't know exactly how to make it a reality. But one thing that I get a lot of people asking for is resources. Like what book should I read on this topic? What articles are valuable on this topic? I would love to be able to, without getting in trouble, I would love to be able to set up a website that has access to resources, and I don't, kind of like a Spotify, but for legitimate resources. And so I don't know exactly what that looks like. But like that to me would be so helpful because people all the time just like, where can I go to find resources? I could say, hey, look,
Yeah.
here's the library. We've got our own deconstruction library now. It's set up by topic. You can pick your topic and find good resources, and then that helps so that people aren't like using Google. Because if you just Google for like a book on something, like,
Mhm.
man, like you don't know if you're finding a good resource written by a real scholar. You don't know that.
No, I know. It's true. Sometimes I'm actually looking for a specific thing that I know exists, but I can't like quite remember the name. But I know I'll know it when I see it. And I get so many weird return, and I'm really good at defining what I'm searching for too. And I'm like, what is Google doing right now? That like that's not even close to what I'm looking for.
Right.
Hey, I see you in chat, and Amy, come up and talk to him. The guest box will be open in just a minute. I'm almost done with my questions. You can tell him. um, okay. Has being on shows like The Line or AXP influenced the way you approach your own content now?
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot of feedback on the line and AXP. And when I first did like my guest appearances on the channels, the thought that went through my mind was like, all right, this is somebody else's channel. This is not my channel. Like I need to be on my best behavior. And so I think I kept my character toned down quite a bit. And like kept it at like the professional level, I guess you might say. And I got a lot of positive feedback. I think there's a lot of people that like the TikTok debates are a little bit hype, and I think we're used to that. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, I don't like all that hype. I just want to hear the talking points. And so like and sometimes I do, sometimes I get worked up myself when somebody's justifying like
Yeah.
doing rape apologetics, but I'm trying to walk my channel closer into that direction because I don't like, is it entertaining to hear two people yell at each other? Sure. It really is. And I don't mind it. I grew up in a huge family where like yelling at each other is like our love language sometimes. And so like I get it. Like it makes for a good show, but I think here in 2025, like walking back my position to try to be a little closer to what Ian does, only because I think there's a percentage of people that aren't interested in the slugfest.
Yeah. And I mean, even though the slugfest can be entertaining, listening to two people mentally spar, if you will, is entertaining too. So I don't need people yelling and getting at each other or whatever. If what you guys are saying is entertaining me intellectually, like if I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Where are we going to go now with that, or whatever. So I don't think we need always.
Right. And it's a hard balancing act too. So like people who aren't looking at the analytics don't see what I see, but like I'm looking at the analytics during a show and I look at the analytics after a show. I know for a fact, based on 2 years of analytics, that if I get a hostile guest into the guest box and we get into a good little 30-minute slugfest, my live stream is going to bump by 40%. People
Yeah,
are going to they're going to scroll by, they're going to hear the argument, and they're going to tune in. Like, what the hell's going on here, right? So, like, I know it. If it bleeds, it leads. That being said, I think too much of it is bad. I think you have too much
yeah,
of that, and it brings the channel down.
I agree. So should you and I just start like yelling at each other right now? Do you think we could get 40 people in
You
here.
know, Crystal,
Justin and Crystal.
Crystal, you can shut your mouth when you're talking to me, okay?
Is that how you talk to women, huh, Justin? Are we seeing the real you?
I'm going to give you the biblical view.
Okay, looking ahead 5 years, what impact do you hope your work will have on people leaving religion?
Good question. You know, when I first started, I wanted people to, I wanted to give them a soft landing so that they can deconstruct and not like just like implode, have their life implode. And I think it kind of got, once I got on TikTok, I think it kind of derailed into just cooking Christians. But I think one of the things that I'm hoping to get back to is to work on helping people find a soft landing as they exit religion because it's hard to do. It's hard to exit religion and maintain composure and a sense of self and purpose. And so if there's something that myself or the community can do I think that's why the Discord was so critical in getting integrated because Benny was already doing the Discord. So now that we have a place we can kind of send people where there's some kind of community and resources, I think is really helpful. Once we get the charity up and running, there's some legal stuff I have to look into, but we should be able to provide counseling at our expense for the charitable expense for people leaving. So when people are leaving and they're like, listen, I really need therapy, but I don't have insurance. I really need therapy, but I can't pay for it, right? We can offer these people to say, listen, we've got some therapists already in the community that specialize in this. We can get you, say, 10 sessions with this therapist, and then after that, you can decide if you want to continue on your own. So I do think adding the 501c3 to this gives us a little more room to help people get to that soft landing after they leave. Because, like, I remember when I left religion, it wasn't that soft of a landing. I kind of left and I was wandering aimlessly for a while, and then I hit atheism, and that was a pretty hard landing for me. And like a lot of people are they feel like they're figuring it out on their own, and it's not until
Yeah.
later you run into other people that are that are doing the same thing. It's not until later you find out, oh, there are therapists who specialize in this. There are organizations that specialize in this, right? By the time you find them, it's already too late half the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt the same way you did. I felt when I left that I was kind of wandering alone. I I didn't really want to talk to my family, even Doug and the kids about because unfortunately I was the one who kind of dragged them into Christianity and then now I was abandoning them
Yeah,
in
what did Doug say?
Christianity. Well, at first it was really like just a shock to him. He was just like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" Like I wasn't even that much into it until I met you and you like made me do it's like, what are you talking about? And then we would listen to you sometimes, and he would like argue with you. But then he would be like, wait, is that true? Like, whatever you just said, and I would be like, hey, like, look, let's look at it. And then he would be like, oh my God, that's so dumb, And I would be like, yeah, see what I'm saying? It's like, kind of dumb. Why
No,
did we believe this? And then he was like, okay, I don't believe in that. And then it became like, but I still believe in a creator God because he's a mechanical engineer. So for
right.
him, it is very hard for him to think that something that he feels is very complex to be made without a designer because he's a
Sure.
designer. But just recently, I said, but you still believe in a creator God, right? He goes, oh, not necessarily a God. I just think that we came from somewhere. I just don't like really know where. For all I know, it could be aliens and so now it's becoming less and less, like he's deconstructing too. So it's good.
And it's certainly possible too. Like there are some people that are like, listen, the God concepts are weird, but I really feel like we have a spirit that lives on, right? Well, like
Yeah.
that can be true. You know, it's certainly possible that like the Buddhists got it right, that there is some kind of a spirit world. They're just not a creator god.
Yeah. So yeah, so he doesn't know. He just doesn't know that he really believes in the full, you know, expansion theory. I don't like he believes parts of everything because he's an engineer. So obviously
Right?
he believes a lot of science. So and he's a very good engineer too. I think you'll remember you'll remember this, I think. I texted you like a long time ago about an engineering question that I told you that my husband had me ask you because I think he was testing to see like if he's a good,
Yeah.
electrical engineer, then I could probably also trust what he's telling me about the Bible. Do
Yeah,
you
I
see what
remember
he was
that.
like doing? So he was like, "Oh, that is what I would have said too." So he like was like, "Yeah, he's on point on that." So
And to
hey,
be
you
fair,
guys,
there are some bad engineers out there. I've met them and
yes,
they're scary.
they are. They're horrible to like. He'll come home and just tell me stories, and I feel so bad for all. My father was an engineer. My son is a computer engineer. My husband is a mechanical engineer. I have surrounded myself with engineers, and like there are definitely good engineers and there are bad engineers and they can
Hmm.
screw up things for everybody. Hey, you guys, the guest box is open now. If you have a I can't talk, but if you have a question for Justin, come on up. Ask him your questions. If you are over on YouTube, I am so sorry, but I don't have super chats yet or anything. If you have a question for Justin, put it all in caps and I will read that out to him. Hey, Amy, how are you?
Hello, friends. I am well. Thanks for letting me come up.
Great to see you, Amy.
No problem.
I was like spamming Justin in the comments with my freakouts. Like, I I hate it, and we come across it quite often in the deconstruction community where someone is like trying to sell you a deconstruction journey journal, and that stuff just like I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way. It's just like evangelical grifting. But what Justin's proposing is something I am absolutely dying to be a part of. Justin, we can connect outside of Crystal Live because I don't want to like derail, but I do have experience with like setting things up so that you're governmentally compliant. I am someone who would be more than happy to help create and curate libraries for all levels and introductions and conclusions of deconstruction. Like I am so on board to give you my time and labor for this nonprofit. So please, please hit me up.
Yeah, I will definitely send you a message. We can get started on this. 'Cause I know you've been deconstructing for a long time, and actually, I found your channel pretty darn close to when I got on to TikTok. You were one of the early channels that I stumbled across as, oh, we've got people here deconstructing and engaging with like scholarship and things like that. And so, yeah, you probably have a little bit of a head start with the nonprofit compliance. I'm just now learning. I'm like putting my feet in the water and like, because I worked for churches and I know most of the rules for churches, but I don't know anything about like charitable activities, like where my limitations are.
It's fairly straightforward once you know which I guess entity you need to focus on.
Right.
But I'm happy to help because it is sort of a part of what I do for a living. Um,
Perfect.
so I can help there. Um, I also think that there are people who are in the in between of coming out of evangelical Christianity, and they're not yet agnostic. They're not atheists. They're not anti-theists. They don't know what they are. And I think that I know that that's where I am, and it's a lonely place to be. It's a confusing place to be, and there are only so many people who are going to resonate with that place of limbo of like I can't call myself a Christian, but I still am working through um, the indoctrination, the scholarship, whatever it is, and just having a place to come and talk like whether it's a specific Discord channel for the limbo people or anything. Like I'm happy to help with that too. Like I'm so excited for you. This is a beautiful thing.
Thanks, Amy. And I think a lot of people get the wrong idea. Like they think that I want other people to become atheists, and I don't know if that is necessarily the goal for everybody. I think I want people to think critically about their beliefs, and I want people, if you believe in something dangerous or harmful, I want you to believe in something that's not dangerous or harmful. If that means you switch to a better form of God concept, I'm all for it. I don't think like I just happen to come out on the atheist side, but a lot of people deconstruct and they're not atheists.
Yeah, and like providing a place for people to speak their mind freely and not be judged by Christians or people who have already come to the conclusions of atheism or agnostic atheism. I think there's a lot of value in that. And eventually, you're going to land somewhere. I don't know when that will be for me. Looking forward to the day. In fact, Joyful sent me a message the other day, like, can't wait for you to join, the quote unquote dark side. Because talking points align more with atheists than they do like Bible believing Christians. It's a weird place to be, but I'm excited.
Yeah.
This is awesome. If I can help at all, like seriously, let
All
me
right.
know.
Well, we'll definitely connect offline, and we'll see where we can mesh. I'm currently right now waiting for the charity has already been approved by the state of Ohio, but I'm waiting on the 501c3 tax exemption status from the federal government.
Yeah, that's gonna take a while.
Yeah, I know, like 90 days at the minimum, right?
Yep. And for your vision with the library, are you thinking like a free online resource, sort of like a miniature Libby kind of thing, where people can check books out? Like,
That's
what does that look like?
that's kind of the goal. So I think Libby and archive.org have working models, and I don't know if there's a way to do a fork of one of those models where you can curate your own sources, or if I need to set up a standalone instance, I could do that. I could, I've got programming skills. I could make it a reality. But like, I think the goal is to do something along that line where we have a library of books that we've paid for,
Yeah.
and that other people can check out and read without having to pay like a membership price or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. That's gonna probably have to involve reaching out to the individual publishers' licensings, but it's not impossible.
Right.
Okay, send me a message. We'll talk offline. Like I said, I don't want to derail Crystal. Crystal, it's so good to see your lovely face. Justin,
Amy, it's so good to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
I have to go back to work and do my job. But Justin, I look forward to hearing from you.
Have a great one, Amy.
Hey, you guys, I see questions in the comments about the Discord. If you want to join the Deconstruction Junction Discord server, the link is in my bio. It's absolutely free to join. But we do want you to know that it is for people who are deconstructing from, want to help people deconstruct, or have already deconstructed from harmful religions. So it's not a place to come in and debate. It's not an atheist server. We have people of all different faiths and all different places in their deconstruction journey. You're more than welcome to join, but it is not a debate space. If you want to debate, you want to make sure you follow my guest, Justin, and you can debate him when he goes live during the week. And you can debate him here on TikTok, or if you're over on YouTube, you can follow him over there. He's Deconstruction. I always want to call you Deconstruction Junction Zone, okay? Deconstruction Zone, Justin, okay? Hi, Aaron. How are you?
Also known as Deconstruction Man Johnson.
That's true. And he's DZ Debates, by the way. Okay, go ahead, Aaron.
Hi, Justin.
Hey, how you doing, Aaron?
Good. I'm so happy to talk to you again because it's been so long.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Crystal and everyone else who has created all this stuff for the deconstruction community. It's been this community saved my life. I'm going on 2 years from like finding this on TikTok. Justin, you were one of the first people I met. And for people who are just into deconstructing and just deconstructing, like this changed my world. And if it wasn't for people like you, like making sure this keeps going on, the fundraising is amazing, but just like being able to personally reach out to people. And I can honestly say, I have seen this community do more for people than I have ever seen a church do. And you guys are just amazing. And I want to say that to you. And I want everyone out there to know it. And thanks. So that's why I wanted to say it first. But I do have a couple questions.
Well, well, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate the kind words. But yeah, what's in your mind?
I also wanted to say I have I worked for 12 years as the business manager of a 501c3. I've served on some local boards in the United Way, and I would love when you expand your board to be considered for that. So I'm going to throw that out there too.
Perfect. Okay. Well, definitely let's follow up on this once we get everything approved. I
Yes.
think we're going to be looking at like building out a 2026 plan, and my assumption is that our 2026 plan is going to include an expansion of the board so that we can divvy up the responsibilities and spread out the responsibilities so one person's not trying to do everything.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to help with whatever I'm experienced in.
Sure.
So, okay, so on to my questions. I have a very quick story that will lead into a question, and I've been dying to tell you this. This happened now like 5 or 6 months ago. I was on, so I found one of the things that I've noticed with the atheist community is they love to argue whether Jesus had existed or not. So I
Yeah.
was in a Reddit community and I was saying that I didn't believe Jesus existed. I mean, people were getting mad at me and like it was crazy. And somebody said to me that I should look up Justin Deconstruction Zone and get and because he's somebody with a lot of education. And me, acting like a teenage girl, I'm like, actually, Justin is one of my mutuals on TikTok. And then I felt like an idiot for saying that.
No, I would have said it too.
Recommended that I check you out but I did say I'm not certain, but I do not believe Justin does think because this guy was saying Jesus did exist, and then he recommended I listen to you. So I'm actually asking a lot of creators this because I'm personally trying to make up my own mind how I feel about it. Do you believe Jesus was an actual person?
I do. So I think Jesus was an actual person, and I think there's a couple reasons for it. Um, One reason for it is while it's not impossible, I think it's difficult to get a large group of people to follow into a religion based around an actual human figure. Like we do have like different deities that were invented. Like there was a Egyptian Greek deity that was entirely invented that and then the ruling authorities said like this is now an official deity and you either agree or get out, right? That type of stuff happens, but when it comes to religions that are based around people like that actually claim to have existed here on the earth, there's not a lot of good cases where those religions started and were anywhere close to the time period that the supposed individual lived. So certainly there were people that believed in like the divinity of Romulus and Remus, but we have no evidence that anyone from the time period of Romulus and Remus believed that nonsense. It seems to be something that developed as mythology many, many, many centuries later. Whereas the mythology around Jesus seemed to have developed around his own time period, which would lead one to believe that it probably did evolve around a real human being, or else somebody could have just cross-checked. Somebody would have said, like, listen, my grandpappy over here was alive and lived in Jerusalem 3 decades ago, and he said he never heard of this Jesus guy, right? So when you have religions that are popping up around real human beings, and it's the religion is popping up in a time frame where people would have been alive when that person was alive, I think it's much more difficult to move to mythicism. And I think the other thing too is It's not just the followers of Jesus that talked about him. It wasn't just the disciples and then people from the early church who claimed to know the disciples, but even like people who would have been considered enemies of Jesus spoke about him. Like I talk a lot about the Sanhedrin 43, but in quite a few places in the writings in the Talmud, they go out of their way to talk about what they did to Jesus, and there's even like sideways insults. Like even the way that they put his name into the story, like his name would have been Yeshua, but the way that they write it in the Talmud, it rhymes basically with a derogatory word. And so like it's just clear that they don't like this guy. And I'm like, why would the Sanhedrin be writing a narrative about a guy that they don't like and like putting these subtle jabs into the text if he was just purely fiction? If he was just purely fiction, the Jews would have been they'd be like, "Hey, this guy didn't exist. You're all idiots." But they don't say that. They say, "No, the guy existed. We killed some of his followers and we killed him."
Okay. All right. No, thank you. Do you? What about Paul? Do you think Paul existed?
I think Paul existed, and I think a lot like Jesus. I think what we know about Paul has been mythologized. I think there are probably some authentic letters of Paul in the New Testament and a bunch that are not authentic. And this is the trouble with the Bible because the Bible, it was clear that the early Christians were willing to accept documents that were not authentic. There's just no reason to believe that Peter wrote Second Peter. Not a single reason to believe that. But the early church, like a lot of people were willing to accept it, right? So like if the early church were willing to accept like known bad documents, then that means we can't really always trust them on when there are documents that we think are good because it's clear their level of scrutiny was poor. So I don't know how much of the New Testament is demonstrating a real Paul or a mythologized Paul. And I'll give you one example. In Acts, I think 22 or 26, Paul claims that he got letters of approval from the Sanhedrin to go and like round up Christians. Well, listen, we know that the Sanhedrin like didn't like the Christians, but like I would expect that if Paul was this influential, that the Sanhedrin was giving him permission to go and round up these Christians to persecute them, like they would have mentioned it. But it's nowhere to be found. There's no figure in the writings of the Sanhedrin where they're like, yeah, we gave such and such person authority to go round up Christians. This is not there.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, my Crystal, if I'm asking too many questions and people are waiting, please just tell me to shut up.
Okay,
Oh no, you're
first of
fine.
all, let me just tell everybody so that they'll know too, Aaron. You guys, the guest box is open. You don't have to wait for Aaron to be finished because I can bring you up and we can stack people here. If you're over on YouTube, just ask your question all in caps. I'll read it out for Justin. If you're too shy to come up, don't have a good mic, or have never joined a live before, and you have a question in the TikTok chat, go ahead and put it in all caps. Nobody will mute you, and I will read that out to Justin as well. But the guest box is open, and you go right ahead, Aaron, with your next question.
Okay, thank you. So when I was a Christian, Justin, I had a friend of another denomination, and I can remember years ago having an argument with her about spirituality on earth. I came from the type of church that believed in there was spiritual warfare and demons, like fighting for our souls. Well, so she said to me that the way that we know that angel encounters aren't true is because everybody talks about it in a way that it brought them peace, or that they were helped. And she said, biblically, anytime there is an encounter with an angel in the Bible, people are immediately afraid. And nobody ever says an angel came to me and I was terrified. So I wanted to know if you know that's true, or you think that's true about the Bible, that all angel encounters are met with fear.
Well, they do say fear not a lot, don't they, Justin? They'll go fear not.
Always have to start out with fear not, and that was actually.
Well, they're ugly too, right, Justin?
there, there's a long-running meme about the so-called biblically accurate angels, right? So there's you're not wrong. When we look at the narratives of the Bible, typically when angels show up, I'm thinking like the mother of Samson, or some of the like when it showed up to Mary, they always, or even at the tomb, they're like, don't be afraid because they're afraid, right? And even the guards, it says the guards fell and became stiff like dead men. But we do have some other stories that seem to indicate that there were angels that were like their goal was to be ministering angels, like angels there to help. So think about like in Luke, there's an angel that appears from heaven to strengthen Jesus, even like when he's going through the garden agony in Gethsemane, an angel appears to helps to strengthen him, right? There are angels that offer protection that are mentioned in the Psalms. So talk about different angels that are like encircling the individual for protection. And then we even have angels that like help out Elijah. Remember when Elijah was being fed in the wilderness?
Yeah.
So like there are certainly some occasions where angels are doing ministering and people aren't necessarily terrified. And my take would be like it seems like the whether or not the person is terrified by the angel is completely connected to what the goal of the angelic vision was meant to be. Was it meant to scare somebody, or was it meant to provide them comfort? If the goal of them showing up was to provide comfort, those stories appeared to be a lot less frightening.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
How come nobody ever does see an ugly angel, though? You would think that if sometimes ugly angels do exist, that how come that's never a modern story? Like this 10-eyed, like ugly looking thing came to me and said, "Do not be afraid."
Well,
Why is it never this story?
that is kind of that is kind of a deeper topic because like the word for that typically is used for angel when it talks about like the biblically accurate angel, typically that's actually referring to like a seraph, or in the plural the seraphim, which was a slightly different classification of entity. A seraphim is
Mm.
like an angelic figure that has like a fiery serpent representation, whereas a standard angel would have been a slightly different classification. A standard angel wouldn't have been so like the seraphim that show up in the prophetic books are not necessarily the same thing as like your run-of-the-mill angel.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll allow that.
No, appreciate it.
Crystal approves.
Okay. I do have a question over from YouTube real quick. This comes from John Lane. He says, for both Justin and Crystal, is there an argument you think theists actually do a good job with and no Philbros don't count? So what about you, Justin?
Arguments that theists do a good job with. Let me think on that one. Here's the one thing they do well. The one thing they do well is read the letters of Paul and integrate that into their theological framework. The problem that they have is reading Jesus and integrating Jesus into their framework, because Paul is really clear. He gives instructions and rules and regulations. And you're like, oh, well, Paul says don't do this, so I don't do that. Paul says you can do this, so I can do this. Like it's just really instructional. Whereas when you're reading the Gospels, sometimes it's hard to know what Jesus is saying or why he's saying it, right? So Christians are really good at integrating Paul's teachings. The problem is they don't realize that Jesus is teaching something different than Paul, and so they think that they're following Jesus when they're really following Paul.
I agree on that 100%. And for me, I will tell you something, John. I used to really hate debating or talking with Orthodox because they would then claim, well, they're not scripture, sola scriptura. They also believe in the church fathers. And I was like, how can I argue that? Then anything I say, you're going to say, but the church fathers say it said this. It's literally just saying then all apologetics are fair game. And so I put a hit out on the church fathers. I said, you guys, I'm sick of hearing about the church fathers. There's got to be some dirt on them. Go pull up some dirt on the church fathers for me. And we found out that Thomas Aquinas believed that women were defective men. And he also believed that hell was entertainment for Christians to watch while they're in heaven for an eternity. So he believed watching people suffer for an eternity was entertainment. And I don't know, but if you align your values with that for a church father, then I don't care about your opinion after that. So anyway, that was the only thing they did good. I don't know, like if it's not a Philbro, their arguments are usually pretty weak. That's just truthful for me. But I don't debate the same people Justin does. So hey, Aaron, did you have any other questions?
I did, but let's go ahead and let other people ask because there's other people up here. I don't want to take all the time, but there's time at the end. I do. Can I hang out up here?
Yeah, no problem. There's nobody waiting in the box. If I start to get some, I might ask you to drop down. But right now, everybody's being a little shy. So, Tahir, hi. How are you today, my friend?
Good. Hi. Doing well. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Did you have a question for Justin?
Yes, I sure do. But first, I just wanted to say hi, Justin.
Great to hear you.
Yeah, and I kind of want to do, exactly what Aaron did. Like, just thank you for everything that you do for the deconstruction community and, and caring so much about the community. It's very evident that you're not just words, your actions as well. And I personally really appreciate that. So just giving you your flowers.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So my question is, I know Crystal kind of asked like what has been the most rewarding part of, doing what you do, and especially more on like a full-time basis. But I was just wondering, and the answer may be the same, but what is your favorite part of all of it? Like if you had to say, this is what I do and this is my absolute favorite part about it, what would that be?
I think my favorite part right now is being able to find people, like when we have good guests that come up and you can tell that they're thinking through some of the problems, and like as you're walking them through different parts of the Bible, they're recognizing in real time like, oh, this is something I've never heard before, and like this is like problematic, this is something I need to examine, right? And then so for me, I think one of the most rewarding things is finding those rare conversations with people where you can see that they're trying to be honest, you can see that the wheels are turning, and that they're actually critically thinking about something. Because that's what I wanted when I first started the channel. I wanted people to critically think about their beliefs, and I feel like I I was naive. I thought I would have a bunch of those conversations when I got online, and that's not what I got. What I got was a lot of people that are angry that I'm questioning their beliefs. So like I still really enjoy it. And I know like I get complaints if I get somebody like that on my live stream, I'll let them go for like 2.5 hours and people get bored. But to be fair, that's from me.
Complaints? What?
Yeah.
We would never complain about that. What are you talking about?
Like if I've got a guy up there that's boring, but he's like being open and honest and truly deconstructing, I'll keep him up there for the full 6 hours if I have to. Like those conversations to me are the most critical conversations. Those are really pivotal in somebody's journey.
I love that. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That is, in my opinion, also, one of the best parts of all of this is like, yeah, Crystal said, watching intellectual, fist fights essentially, and, crash outs and that stuff. Like, yeah, it can be interesting, but like for me, the big thing that I like seeing is those, as you said, very rare moments where you have somebody who you are making think about like their worldview and their opinions, and really consider what you're saying, because it's so rare, but and for me that's what this is all about. So kind of goes in line with your whole actions and words thing, and I really appreciate that and appreciate that answer.
Yeah, thanks.
Tahir, did you have another question?
Sorry, nope, that was it for me.
Okay, I do have a. Okay, thanks for coming up.
Yeah,
You guys, Tahir.
Good to hear from you,
Tahir is
Tahir.
Tahir is one of our administrators over on the Deconstruction Junction Discord, and she's an amazing support for the community. So make sure you guys are following her. I have a question over on YouTube. This comes from Julia. I as well come from a STEM background. After deconstructing, I feel lots of shame and guilt. I was rational and irrational at the same time. Thoughts? Same experience?
I think yes. So like when you grow up believing something for a long time, even when you start applying critical thinking to it, it's really easy to be like, yeah, but like I don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. So then you end up like making apologies. Like so for example, if if I when I was deconstructing, if I compared my continued belief in a God to somebody else's belief in their God, it would have been clear that I was special pleading for my God. And sometimes it
Yeah.
takes stepping back and recognizing, you know what, these same arguments I'm using for my God could justify any other God, and I'm not being rational. But it's hard to recognize that while you're in the middle of it because you're the one experiencing it, and your brain can get sideways trying to examine itself.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. 3Y Derm, how are you today?
I'm good. Is it Justin, right?
Hmm.
Justin, it's M. Rudy. I don't know if you remember, but me, you, Ian, and Blitz talked
Yeah,
for a
we
little
did.
bit. I had just a couple questions for you. One real quick, not really my real question, but have you ever tried, like, I see you went on Tim Pool before, like randomly I saw that, which is kind
Hmm.
of cool, but have you ever tried like debating like someone like Trent Horn or like Jimmy Aiken?
I've never even heard of him.
Oh, okay. Well, he's Trent Horn. I would encourage you. He's a Catholic apologist for Catholic Answers. He's been on the Whatever podcast, debated like someone like Destiny on topic of abortion. Very well respected debater. So I would encourage you maybe reach out. I feel like that'd be really awesome.
Well,
Awesome to
Rudy,
see.
the problem with all these popular debaters on the Christian side is they've already lost the debate on whether or not Christianity is real, which is why they do like silly side topics, like whether or not abortion is moral or whether or
Oh
not
no,
Christianity is
he
good for
does.
America.
He's got a whole entire playlist of God debates. He doesn't just do abortion. He does. The only debates he's done has been like Catholic versus Protestant. Does God exist with other atheists? Like he did one with who was Alex O'Connor. He debated on pints with. I think it was pints with Aquinas. He
Yep,
debated him. Um, so he doesn't just do like these side topics. He does like the faith topics and these like large moral topics.
sure.
So I would disagree with that.
Okay, I mean, has he debated anyone that you can name on whether or not Christianity is true?
Yeah, Alex O'Connor.
Okay, that's it.
Alex O'Connor, Ben Watkins. He's more known in philosophy.
Right.
Um,
Was it a debate on philosophy or was it a debate on Christianity?
it
So
was
this is
does
the other
God
problem
exist?
is most exactly, does God exist? See, that to me is nothing to do with Christianity.
No, that well, the most logical steps for like someone like Trent Horn, he says this all the time, is that he starts with the does God exist, and then from there, where did this God reveal himself? So it's like the logical, it's like the more
Right.
fundamental question compared to
That's what I want to see. Where did he get to the point from God exists to my God is the
sorry,
one true God? I
he
want to see
actually
that debate.
what's the one guy's name? He's a very popular debater. They talked about is belief in the resurrection reasonable? He did a debate with he was okay, I'm not trying to like make anyone upset, but he recently was going to debate someone or Andrew Wilson, and he left after Andrew Wilson made a comment about his transgender wife.
But
What's his name? Matthew
Matt Dillahunty?
Matt
yes,
Dillahunty?
yeah, Matt Dillahunty. He debated Matt Dillahunty on his belief in the resurrection reasonable. So
Okay,
he's
so
done
he
all of these. He's done
okay,
all of
so
them.
so Trent did debate Matt Dillahunty.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And do you think it went well?
Oh, he destroyed Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah, do you think
Destroyed
that
him.
do you think that
No,
atheists would
because
agree with that?
oh, for sure. Oh, definitely. No, you want to know
You
why? Because
definitely did not. I'm just.
No,
There you go.
no, you want to know why? Because he didn't have to prove the resurrection happened. The premise of the debate was: is it reasonable? Is it a reasonable belief? Like there's
It's
something.
reasonable only if you agree that a dozen other people are resurrected. So
No, well, okay, you can make your judgment based on the debate, but Matt Dillahunty visibly got annoyed because Trent Horn brought up, he was like, oh, well, you don't believe in vegan ethics, but you can see it as a reasonable position, even though you're not convinced by it. That was the whole and then Matt Dillahunty started freaking out and got all mad.
I'm hearing from the atheists in the comments that Trent didn't do so hot. Maybe it seems to be that
Justin,
you
if you
think
want to go
Trent
watch
Horn did well because you already believe in his talking points.
No. I will tell you if a Christian does horrible against who was the one guy that debated Alex O'Connor recently?
No
He's
idea.
Forgot his name, but he had no idea what he's talking about. He looks stupid. I think he's actually a Catholic too, which even should be even more of a bias for me. But he just looked horrible. So I'll admit when they looked bad, but if you go and watch that debate, Justin, I guarantee you'll come up saying Trent Horn was the more composed, reasonable person in that debate, and he proved
reasonable.
No,
not
hold
so
on,
much.
not just that.
The belief in the resurrection is never a coherent position.
He gave three premises for why a belief could be reasonable. I don't remember them. He gave three premises. He gave a formulated argument.
So it was based on word games. Cool.
No, what do you mean word games?
It's based on word games about how you interpret the word reasonable.
No, he said my three characteristics of a reasonable belief would be these three things. If Matt Dillahunty disagreed with that, he could have argued against it, but he never argued against his argument or his premises. He never attacked any of the premises. So by definition, he lost.
Right, because you wanted to play a philosophical word game rather than engaging with whether or not something's reasonable.
It's not. It's okay. If
you're really into like that, if you're really into that kind of word game ego stroking, I'm glad you like the debate.
It's not
I'm
ego
interested
stroking.
in
It's
actual
not ego
evidence.
stroking.
And based on the
can you let Justin respond?
Based on the appearances that you've made on Unapologetic, I'm not surprised that these are the type of arguments that are convincing to you, but they're not convincing to normal people.
And, I do not want this to become a debate on whether a debate was won by another debater or that debater. This is a Decon Q&A for Justin. If you have a question for Justin, we can continue. If not, I'm going to move on.
I had a question.
Okay, are you done?
No, I have one more question.
Are you done?
No, I have one more question for him. Okay, well, I guess it's not going to, but I would encourage you to actually debate someone who knows what they're talking about, not Tim Kapoor, who's in between Christianity.
Then tell him to come see Justin. Like, why are you coming to Justin telling him to go to them?
Trent Horn's very famous.
Yeah, why are you crying that I'm not debating your favorite debaters?
No, I'm asking you, why haven't you debated a real apologist, not someone like Tim Kapoor who's in between on Christianity?
They're scared.
Because they're scared. Get them on my stream.
You want to debate lukewarm Christians and not actual apologists.
Are you not capable of doing it yourself?
So you're a lukewarm Christian?
No, I'm not.
Because you debated him.
No, my profession is not apologetics, right?
Yeah,
I try to learn from.
I run a call-in show where anyone can call in. I'm on AXP like 2 or 3 times a month. Anyone can call in. I'm on other people's call-in shows. They can call in. I when I started my channel, my goal was not to become the best debater in the world. My goal is not to defeat every other Christian debater. My goal is to spread the message. And my message is best spread by running my own platform. My message is best spread by doing debates on platforms that people actually talk in, like actually participate in. Listen, I get like doing a modern day debate or something with Trent Horn, like maybe 50,000 people will watch it. Who knows? But I know like half of those people already follow my channel. It doesn't really do anything for my message. My goal is messaging. My goal is not to win the debate crown. So I get it. You think there's probably some apologist that is really good that's going to cook me, and you're welcome to have them call in and cook me.
Justin, would you?
Absolutely.
I would love to see you on Jubilee, where they have
I
like
tried.
Oh no.
20 people. I love those debates.
I tried.
Oh,
If they get me on Jubilee, I would be more than willing to get on there and do a roundtable.
That would be so awesome.
hey, you guys, thank you so much for the 37,000 likes. And I do have a gift goal. If you can help me reach that by the end of the show, that would be great. Don't forget, I'm also looking for subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so today. I will be with you guys in just 1 minute. I want to read one more question over from the YouTube. This is from John Lane. He says, for Justin, I'm not sure if I've ever encountered a debater on YouTube half as patient as you are with some of the most insufferable people. How do you practice, train, and grow your patience?
I think it's just one of those things that like you kind of learn through experience. Like when I first started debating, and look at Red Rum crying in the comments. He can't handle
I
the fact
know,
that
it's so...
I'm cooking Christians every day, left and right. It keeps him up at night.
I'm
So
glad he admitted they're all lukewarm, though. I'm glad he admitted.
right now, keep in mind, anyone who's been following my channel for any time, no, I've talked literally to priests, I've talked to bishops, I've talked to a PhD holding apologist. It's not like everybody on my stream is a nobody. Anyone can call into the stream that
Right?
wants to call into the stream. So yeah, but if my goal is to change people's minds, I think what I'm doing right now is the best method for doing that. Um, so anyways, I'm sorry, Christian, what was the question? I lost track of the guy crying
The
in the
the
comments.
question was like basically, how do you train to be so patient
Oh,
with these people?
so I'll tell you what it does for me. So like when I have to do clips of episodes to post online, and so like typically what I'll do is like I'll listen back like to the stream so I know what to clip. And like as I'm listening to the stream a second time, I'm identifying parts where like, you know what? I got a little I overreacted there, and I think it derailed the purpose of the conversation. And so I make mental notes. I was like, you know, here's something I did wrong. Here's something I could do better. Here's something that needs improvement. It's kind of like when I played football, you had to watch the tape after the game to be like, okay, guys, we won, but here's where you fucked up. So I kind of do the same thing when I'm reviewing the streams to figure out who's getting clipped. Is like, okay, here's where I fucked up that I need to do better.
Yeah, you know what? I do that too. That's actually why I look at the camera more. I used to always be down like this, looking at questions constantly, even or comments on the other screens, and I realized half of my show was me looking down. So I'm like, no, you must look up during the show. Um, Doug Debug, how are you today?
I'm well today. This is actually my first time calling in as a caller. I helped Justin the other day with some stuff,
Oh,
but yeah. Okay, so first of all hail Doug, of course.
Praise
hell
And
yeah.
this is not a personal experience question thing, but I just want to start out with like 3 sentences of my history. So I started with a lot of childhood trauma. So then my mom started bringing us to church every time the door opened. And it was fundamentalist, like hardcore Bible believing stuff. Well, anyway, I deconstructed from that as an adult into, and this is where my question comes up, into a church that basically did dispensationalism.
Mm,
And that was the way that they explained, well, first of all, that was the way that they could say that we can do worship services so different today because we're in a different dispensation. Because the church before, it was like organ only, everybody stay quiet, nobody raised their hand. And this wasn't charismatic. It was still a Bible, supposedly Bible believing, following church. Nothing kind of out of the ordinary from your modern Joel Osteen style, worship services, if you will. But so dispensationalism, are you familiar with that?
yeah, dispensationalism was like super popular, like in the World War II era, post World War II. I first discovered dispensationalism when I was a teenager because my dad went to a Baptist church, and the pastor for that particular church did some training in dispensationalism, and he had like one book on the subject. And I borrowed the book from his library, and I found it really interesting. And then I started, it's like, oh, okay, well, here's kind of dispensationalism here. And then I started like, okay, what do people say about it? And it's really funny. There's a guy from Dallas Theological Seminary that I found that wrote up a huge article on dispensationalism. So this is probably 20 years ago. And he was kind of bemoaning the fact and kind of lamenting that dispensationalism is still around. And he said it's kind of ironic because Dallas used to be like people would come to Dallas because we were teaching dispensationalism, like we were known for this particular topic. And he goes, and I regret to inform that now that we've changed our position on dispensationalism, it didn't just go away. So like even the people that were the biggest proponents of dispensationalism are like, yeah, we screwed it up. That wasn't good. That wasn't right. But now it's out there. We can't get rid of it. And so he laid down some really good arguments for why it fails. I think dispensationalism is silly. It didn't make any sense. It's not in the Bible. You have to like dispensationalism is made
Yeah,
on
it's not in the
imprints
Bible.
at
Yeah.
best. And so the question remains, should you build your entire theology based on inferences, or should you base your theology on what the Bible actually says and is like less disputed? And I came to a conclusion as a young person that like I don't think basing an entire theological narrative on something that is only loosely inferred from the text is a good idea.
Can
So
you explain for everybody very quickly what dispensationalism is? They would like to know in chat.
can I say what I was taught, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, so dispensationalism is very close to the belief where God deals with humanity in different ways. Think of time from the very beginning to now as chapters in time, and I can't remember the names of them. I think there's 5 different eras, if you will. Think of them as an era, and almost like generations in a way. So obviously we know that he treated the Israelites a certain way, and that was his law system. That was a dispensation of law. And then whenever Jesus came along, that's the dispensation of grace, which is the one we're supposed to be under right now. There's a lot of flaws in this because this is one of the reasons why I'm an atheist now, because you have to really believe that Paul is perfect. You
Right.
have to believe that Paul has never made a mistake, written anything down wrong, or anything. That is the only way the current dispensation even partially makes sense, and it ignores Jesus' ministry completely. Because that doesn't even have its own dispensation in my memory.
Right.
So
And
correct
And
me
there's
is
if I
that
missed
the
something.
same? Is that the way you see it too, Justin?
for the most part, there are alternative models. There's like a 5 dispensation model and a 6 and a 7. I think the 7 is the most popular, but they're all basically the same way, where God be interacts with humanity in a particular way. And the reason why I think dispensationalism becomes silly is because it kind of presumes that all the dispensations are like roughly the same time period. Like God cared so much about splitting history into divisions and making sure the divisions were the same length of time or roughly the same length of time, but for some reason was not concerned with all the shit that happened in the middle of those dispensations.
Right, in between them, right? Or
Yeah,
during a transition period. How do you explain that?
right.
And chat is
And
completely
why?
right.
Yeah,
The
why
church,
transition?
well, the church, chat was talking about Israel. The church that I came from, they're just around the corner from me. And I don't really have any friends there anymore, but I keep up with them a little bit. They are hardcore, what do you call it, Zionist or
Oh
supporting
yeah.
of Israel, and
Mhm.
every doesn't matter what action they take. It just doesn't matter. It's you'd be like, oh, they support genocide, but that doesn't even matter. They support. I mean, genocide's mattered. That came out wrong, but it doesn't matter what Israel's doing. They are going to support them
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
because you have to in dispensationalism because they're part of the current dispensation. They're part of God's current plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you
Anyway,
have another
I don't.
question, Doug?
Well, I was going to say I don't agree with it. Between that and Trumpism, it finally helped me deconstruct. Um, that's why I don't call into these shows very much, is because it's you want to debate Christians, not people who agree with you. So,
Hmm.
but I do have. I mean, I can debate with religion because I was a pastor for 5 years, 7 years as a missionary. I mean, I was in like Flynn, and the only reason where I could justify it. Sounds so crazy now was dispensationalism. That's how I was justifying um, the way God is in the Bible, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
Yeah.
God being evil. That's the way that I justified it. It was, oh, that's a different dispensation.
Right. Yeah, we're in the evil dispensation. Yeah, of course.
I'm-
Yeah, I guess
uh, d-
I don't want to take up the time, but go ahead.
that's okay. Are you in our Discord?
Yeah, actually, I just joined like a few minutes ago.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming up. We appreciate you. Have a good day.
That's
Thank
good
you.
to hear from you again, Doug.
Thanks, Justin.
I have a question over on YouTube real quick. Let me find it. Um, it is from Benny Viddy Beachy. For Justin, do you think the Bible was originally written literary or figurative?
Well, I think it depends on what you mean by the Bible, because certainly there are parts of the Bible that are figurative. Um, so I think most human beings can recognize when somebody is saying something figurative in the Bible. That's not hard. Um, I think the way to read the Bible is not to assume that it's figurative or literal. It's to take each section as an independent genre. And so, like when you take your first hermeneutics class, they're going to introduce you to genre, and that gives you the framework. So if I sit down and I'm reading like a law code, well, like I know what a law code is. Law codes typically aren't figurative. Typically, they're just a law code. It's a genre of text. You read it and you obey it, right? Same thing with poetry. Poetry, you give poetry a license to say things that are metaphorical. You give it a license to say things that are flowery and exaggerated. And so you're not going to apply the same level of scrutiny to like the Psalms that you would say to a narrative from the book of Numbers, right? When Psalms said David says, I was in Sheol. Well, I know you weren't literally in Sheol. You're just saying that you felt like you were at the death doorstep, right? Whereas if
Yeah.
somebody in the Exodus of narrative, in Exodus, if it said that God killed somebody and they went to Sheol, we're like, okay, that person died. They're done, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to recognize which genre you're referring to. And like, so when we look at Genesis, Genesis is usually where the confusion is. Is Genesis literal or is it figurative? And it seems pretty clear that what's happening in Genesis is a scientific, teleological account of how things came to be the way that they are. Why do women have painful childbirths? If God created us to be here on the earth, why is it that we have to toil under heat of the sun and the sweat of our brow. Like it's really explanatory. And like scholars like John Walton in the Illustrated Bible Background Commentary series, John Walton made a statement. He said that Genesis functioned like a science book for the ancient Israelites. And that's the truth of the matter. The reality is people came later and were like, oh, this clearly isn't true. We have to allegorize this. And so like a lot of the earliest church fathers turned most of the Old Testament, because they didn't like it, into allegory, and they were perfectly happy doing it. In fact, some of them even like kind of made fun of others who didn't take it as allegory, because they're like, it's preposterous if it's a true story.
It is preposterous. Hey, Omni, how are you today?
Hey, Crystal, I'm doing well. Yeah,
Did you
I
have
got
a
a question.
question for Justin?
Yeah, Justin, aka I like to call him the final boss of counter apologetics because he's so good at what he does.
Appreciate that.
I just I just have a small question. I stumbled. I normally I like to pride myself at knowing a pretty good amount about the Bible, but I actually stumbled across something I never found before, which is in Jude 1:9, where the author talks about how Archangel Michael encountered Satan over Moses's unalived body. And I'm like, what the? Do you know anything about that? Have you heard about that at all? And do you know what the
Yeah.
context of that is?
So this is contained in what's referred to as the Jewish Pseudepigrapha. There's a bunch of extra biblical Jewish literature that like it's more like fan fiction from the intertestamental Second Temple period that talks about this type of stuff. Like, so yes, there's a very popular narrative where Moses's body, like, it was there was a fight over what's going to happen with the body. I forget exactly the name of the
Yeah.
text now, but you can find it in the works of Charlesworth. So if you there's a 2-volume series by Charlesworth just called Old Testament Pseudepigrapha, and it should have that story in it. Let me see. I'll look it up real quick and tell you what the name of it is. But yes, that story's there. And so Jude and Second Peter are quoting a bunch of like apocryphal works that aren't part of the typical Jewish canon. For example, there's a quotation from the Book of Enoch as well, from First Enoch, I think chapter 9 maybe. So what people don't realize is that the early church, their canon for the early church was certainly much different than what we would say rabbinic Judaism accepted. Let me grab the name of that book though.
Like how are you talking about like how they didn't have like the Maccabees in their canon, the Jews didn't? Or
Yeah, so rabbinic Judaism was traditionally a little more stringent with accepting new theologies and new texts and things like that, whereas we would say popular Judaism, like Judaism of the people,
right.
was much more ready to accept different different books that were non-authoritative but was authoritative to them. So I think what we want probably, which makes sense, is it looks like this is quoted from the Book of Enoch. Let me find that real quick. That's probably where I
Yeah,
read it because Enoch is in Charlesworth's.
well,
Go ahead.
and like, yeah, no worries while you're looking that up. Because like when I found this, I was like, what the heck is going on here? Like, it's like in Deuteronomy, I think it's like that God buried him, and no one knows where he's at. And so it's like, why on like, I mean, I get that maybe the moral of the story that the author of Jude is trying to say is like, see, you just call on the name of the Lord, and then that's gonna make the devil flee. But what I'm interested in is like what's the tradition behind this? Like, why on earth did they like make up fan fiction about like Satan wanting to get his body? Like, what is the idea? Like, they're worried about, oh, maybe Satan's trying to make this into another idol to like deceive the people of Israel, like, or is that like, is there any idea that people have thought about that, or is that just kind of like, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but it was like, I just thought that was so weird.
So, I mean, the Bible is full of quoting Jewish fan fiction. By Bible, I mean the New Testament. The New Testament is really fond of quoting Jewish fan fiction. So, I'm not surprised that they're quoting the fight over Moses' body, and they had a whole, like, if you read like the Wisdom of Solomon in the Apocrypha, they had
Mm-hmm.
in the intertestamental period a whole development of angelology. You'll find it also in the book of Sirach and Tobit. There's like this whole angelology that gets developed, and like angels are just running everything. Angels are everywhere. Like
Oh wow.
they're in charge of the nations, they're in charge of dispensing justice, they're in charge of like which demigod is winning the fight against which other demigod. And so like that's why we see that the archangel needs to fight with the prince of Persia, and then he's going to come back and fight with the prince of Greece later in the book of Daniel. And because like these archangels, these warring angels, like they're the ones that are controlling things in the heavens that then get manifested here on the earth. They're like the link between what's happening here and what's happening in heaven. That's why Jesus instructed people to pray that, you know, it should be on earth as it is in heaven. This goal of like, we want what's happening down here to match what's happening in heaven, but something's preventing that from happening. Well, it's the powers of darkness, the powers of the air that are at war with the good powers that are in the air. That's why things aren't getting solved. And Jesus was supposed to be the final solution. Jesus was supposed to be the one that defeated all these powers of darkness to finally allow what's happening on earth to align with what's happening in heaven.
Yeah, like that just reminds me of like, I remember just my early church days. It was just like, oh, any like small problem, we just got to start. Maybe we're not praying hard enough, or maybe we're not doing. And it's like, golly, that was like so exhausting to do all that. And I can't imagine it must have been like 100-fold back in the day when just like all the craziness is, because it's like, yeah, if they didn't win a war, things didn't happen. They're like, what's going on? Why isn't God like doing the things he told us he was gonna do?
It's because you
So
didn't pray hard enough. Your power
yeah,
is against the
Yeah,
principalities.
yeah.
it's true.
Anyways, yeah, no, thank you for that. That was really the only question I had. So, but what was the name of that book again that you said that had all that angelology stuff again? Was it the Book of Wisdom? You said?
So if you have a Bible that contains the Apocrypha, you'll find in the apocryphal writings like the Wisdom of Solomon, the book of Sirach, and the book of Tobit, you'll
Okay.
find that like angels they're everywhere. I would also definitely give the book of Enoch and the book of Second Enoch a read. I think if you read Enoch 1 and 2, like it will really make the New Testament make sense, because there's a lot of stuff in the New Testament that just doesn't show up in the Old Testament. And like, where are they getting this stuff from? Well, a lot of it's actually getting pulled from Enoch.
Oh wow. Okay.
And like even in Second Esdras, there's this whole idea of like a son of man, you know, coming down to give judgment and sending people to hell and all that kind of stuff. Well, prior to Second Esdras, a lot of that imagery was already found in the book of Enoch. So like it seemed like what it was doing was riffing off of the book of Enoch and creating more fan fiction off of the book of Enoch. In fact, there's there's a whole section in Enoch where it describes the underworld and like the what's happening down there and who is like the fallen angels that are captive down there being held waiting for judgment.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'll check those out. Thanks. That's all I had for questions, so I'll
Yeah,
drop
sure thing.
down. So yeah.
Omni, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. And welcome in CBJ Raiders. Welcome. Thank you for joining. As you join, tap that screen. Look at the gift goal. Gift Justin and our other panelists if you can. But thank you so much for being here. Goddess, while you ask Justin your question, I'm going to be right back. But did you have a question for Justin? I'm going to invite you to unmute. Okay, I don't know if Goddess.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now we can. Yeah. Did you have a question for Justin?
Yes.
Okay, you go ahead and ask your question. And
No.
Yeah, no, so, sorry, this might, no, online, but I did have a question,
I need you to get a little closer to the mic. It's really hard to hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear
okay.
anything.
Is this better?
It's a little better.
Yeah, yes.
that
Go
better?
ahead and ask your question. I'll be right back. Yes, that's better.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Yeah, no, so I just had a question kind of based on my background. I started deconstructing in college, which was a long time ago now, but I was very much a part of a Christian family and was soon to start dating a Christian man. And I at the time, I made a very conscious decision to just not examine it anymore. Like I was just going to believe. Like I was very into apologetics in college, and I was going to a secular school studying secular religion and philosophy. One of the most liberal schools in the U.S. So that was like major transition, and it was very, very awakening for me. But I remember making a decision to just believe it, and I wasn't going to look at it anymore. I stopped looking into things. I stopped reading anything. I was like, I'm just going to stick with this because it was not worth the cost of my family. And the way that I had my life and the relationship I was starting, and I think I got along okay, but the level of dissonance I dealt with for like 15 years was terrible. Like it was still there. Like I ignored it, and it was still there. And then my husband just deconstructed last year, which kind of like I had already started to kind of re-examine things, and was like, but I was keeping it to myself because I don't want to mess with his faith just because mine is gone.
Sure, yeah.
But I guess my question is, I'm sure there are a lot of other people like that who don't believe and don't even like, they think it's ridiculous, but you like have to kind of force yourself to go along with it to not lose everything. Do you have any advice for that kind of situation? Because I really wish I had had somebody tell me, anything at that point of like, and I, part of me wishes I had kind of just done it and broken away from everything, but then I'm very happy with how my life turned out. I've got great kids, great marriage, and my mom deconstructed now, so it turned out fine. But like, is there any, what would you say to somebody that you kind of know is in that place of like, they know but they don't want to know? And like, because I still have some family members that try to talk to me, and like I know that they know, they know, but they can't bring themselves to like admit it. Is there any kind of like comforting statement or like advice to kind of pass along?
So it is tough, and like, so I have a relative that I know is, I think we're on the same page, but nobody else knows. Like he's only told me. And I know that if he told the rest of the family, it would be kind of a big deal. It would be problematic for his marriage. Like it would be a huge issue, right? And so like
I'm going to mute you while Justin answers, okay? It's because you have a lot of background noise. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
so I can understand why somebody may want to kind of like stay in the closet even though they kind of agree with you. And it certainly I don't think it's our job to bring people out of the closet. Like if they want to be a closet non-believer, I think that's their right to do so. Um, there's a lot of people that do that in like Mormonism, and also they do it in Islam because they're like, well, this is what everyone else believes, and I just want to get by in life. I don't care if other people believe what I believe. So on that foot, like if you know somebody who's like comfortable being in the closet, let them be in the closet. It's okay. As long as it's not causing them psychological or mental or emotional damage. I mean, let them stay there. That being said, if you know someone who is deconstructing or already has deconstructed and they feel like they're trapped in the closet, I think that's a different story. If you think they want to get out, that's the point where you might want to just have a friendly conversation and say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And then once they feel comfortable talking to you about it, I think the conversations will become more normalized and they'll recognize that, like, hey, what I'm experiencing isn't crazy. Other people are thinking the same thing too. It's okay to it's okay to think this way. Like I'm not the crazy one here, right? And I think once people feel comfortable in their position, I think they kind of automatically get comfortable with letting other people know about it. So I think for a lot of people, like they don't want people to know about it because they might not be for sure either. They might be like, well, this is kind of what I believe. I don't believe this stuff anymore, but like I don't know. I couldn't prove it to somebody else. Like I couldn't debate it. So it's like I'll 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 let them believe what they want to believe and I'll believe what I believe. And I think a lot of people are okay with that. Like my best friend's father had a very devout wife, went to church every weekend. He even went to church with her. But like he never went out of his way to be like, "Well, that's bullshit." Um because he was just like, "Listen, if it works for you and you're not forcing it on anybody, like what do I care, right?" And so, I don't know, it's hard. Like most of my family still believes, but like I've never brought it up in conversation. Like I've never made it a point to tell people like, well, maybe you shouldn't believe this. In fact, I'm doing a wedding here in like a month or so, and I'll be presiding over the wedding, and the wedding will include prayers. So it's just one of those things where like if they're people you love, it's okay to let them believe what they want to believe, unless they're hurting somebody. If they're hurting somebody, then you have to get a little more aggressive.
Yeah, no, I had a particular family member notice that I was deconstructed. And I didn't even really say anything. They were just like, I think that they were just suspicious because I started
Mm.
just not going to church and just being more relaxed. And they like attacked me
Oh
and my
no.
husband. It caused a big old thing in my whole family, like big thing. But now I think that terrified everybody else. Like that part of my family's not speaking to me. There's other parts of my family that still do believe that are like, okay, well, whatever you want, that's fine. Like, so I've got both sides of the equation that are like, some of them still love me and they don't care, and some of them are like fanatical, like you need to like tell us exactly what you believe and why you believe it and justify it and why are you leaving the faith, and like, but one of them's in seminary right now and she's got her own cognitive dissonance going on. But
That's gonna
yeah, so
happen in
that's,
seminary for sure.
yeah, and she's lashing out too. Like she's absolutely lashing out. But
Well, she's probably being challenged in school, and so the presence
mhm.
of somebody like yourself who's deconstructing probably adds to that pressure, and she's probably just feeling really uncomfortable and doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, no, she really doesn't. And then my brother, who's not deconstructing at all, her husband is like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing?" Like, like he doesn't get it. But I
Yeah,
did have another question, if that's okay.
sure.
This might be more for Crystal actually.
there are other women in my life that are still Christian and still believe in all that, and kind of in a place that I was in for a long time, where they're just chafing against the misogyny and they don't know why. You know what I mean? Like you know that there's something off and it's uncomfortable and you're like, this can't be how it's supposed to be with like being subject to your husband. And you know, my husband always likes to say, why would you be subject to me? What if I'm an idiot? Like
Right,
so
right.
he's great, but he's great, but like I've got a lot of women that I know that they're looking at me and they're not saying anything, but what they do talk about with their life, I can tell that they're chafing themselves, like they're uncomfortable and they don't know why, and they don't want to even go anywhere near deconstruction. Or is there any kind of recommendation? It could even be like a book or like something online where that talks about that type of thing that you have any kind of recommendation for? Either of you?
It's hard because it is a form of cognitive dissonance. How can you be a woman and look at that Bible and think that God loves you at all? How?
Yeah.
I can't see it. When 95% of all the names in the entire book are men's names, there's literally no representation for me. And when there is representation, I am considered a piece of property, or a whore, or disposable. So I can't give you one particular book or anything, because if they're not ready to listen, they're just not ready to listen. And the books and stuff I would give you would all be from atheist women or atheist material.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're gonna go, oh yeah, I want to read that one. But I would sometimes talk about it. I would say, what do you guys think about the fact that Noah, the women on Noah's boat don't even have names, but they supposedly were the women who are our great, 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 great grandmothers, but they weren't important enough to name. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, that makes sense.
They bore all the generations. They were responsible for all of humanity, but they have no names. Like, what does that do for you? Because for me, it tells me that that's all they were incubated.
Yeah, like they're only really named if you did something really weird or bad, like Eve.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Crystal, may I?
Yeah, Aaron, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that I have women friends and family who are part of Christianity, and I will, like, my sister will come to me in distress and she'll say, I've prayed and I will start I give my sister as much as I think she can handle. And I'm like, Bobby, this is coming from, he's treating you this way. I can't believe I just said my sister's name, but
That's okay.
He's treating you this way because the Bible and the church has taught him that he's in charge of you. And I kind of share the misogyny of the Bible and then things that contradict and the way it should really be. And my family thinks I'm a crazy atheist, but I take every opportunity when somebody comes to me and they're upset, especially, I take every opportunity to point to Christianity and religion, because if you're in a Christian household and a church that believes women need to submit to men, I mean, women are in a bad place. So I take every opportunity to make sure women know that's not really what you have to put up with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think that sometimes you just have to take an Occam's razor approach. What is more likely, that there is an all-loving God who actually doesn't give a shit about women, or there were a bunch of men who wanted to rule over women? What seems more plausible? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
The Bible is a book. It has over 100 places where it's putting women beneath men. And I just have a hard time with people who are like, I'm a feminist, but I'm a Christian.
Yes.
Well, Goddess, thank you so much for coming up. I really appreciate you. I've got some questions over on YouTube for you, Justin, and then we'll move along with the panel here. First of all, from Stateful Heretic, Justin, are you at least 18 and do you believe in some kind of Doug? Just look at the rocks. Was there any other questions over on YouTube or were you guys just, oh, here you go. Justin, nope, that's, okay, for Justin, do you think, nope, that one we already asked. Any other ones? Okay, here we go. Justin, if professionals want to volunteer to help with a charity, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Probably the best way to contact me is via email. The email is on my YouTube account. It's also in my link tree, or you can get it. You can get at me at Discord. Just keep in mind that I get a lot of messages. I might not get it to the like a day until a day or two later, but I think typically the best place to go.
All right.
And I would love
okay.
some professional assistance.
Yeah, absolutely. I will get to the other questions over there on YouTube in just a minute. Oppo, is that how you say it? Oppo?
Hello. Yes, it is.
I've been watching you lately, and I was hoping I would say it right when you came up. How are you? It's so nice to meet you.
Yes, it's so nice to meet you, and thank you so much for having this Q&A, Crystal. As always, it's so much appreciated, and thank you for just helping continue to build the deconstruction community. For a lot of us, leaving the faith, it is difficult to find community. So thank you for doing your part to help build it. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Well, did you have a question for Justin today?
Yes, I did. Hello, Justin. It's nice to see you, and thank you for doing this Q&A.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. And this kind of goes along with a complaint that Crystal had earlier centered around the ortho bros. They're the bane of my existence as well as everyone else's. But oftentimes I hear I hear an appeal to the church fathers when there is some questions that are asked pertaining to like the morality of the Bible. And I always find it very frustrating because even the church fathers couldn't agree. And they, were tasked with creating some objective truth claims of the Bible, but with none of them really agreeing with one another for the longest time. It seems as though that in and of itself is subjective. So I'm just wondering your take on this appeal to church fathers when their construction of like apologetics is subjective based and isn't really in line with what the Bible lays out.
So I think the first time I had an ortho or Catholic fellow bro try to convince me that, well, my opinion of the Bible is irrelevant because I'm not part of the apostolic succession. The first thing I pointed out was that they've already put the cart before the horse, which is you would have to first demonstrate that the Bible is true. You would second have to demonstrate that your particular faith was in fact the correct one that gave you the apostolic succession to begin with before I cared what the apostle said. So like in order if your religion isn't true, well, your apostles mean nothing. Your apostolic succession means nothing. It's useless, right? So number one is it has to be true in the first place. The second thing is I would say, okay, now according to the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church, none of the tradition and apostolic teachings can contradict the Bible. That's just something they hold to, and they can't get around it. In fact, there's no way that they would validate the claim that the official teaching of the church is allowed to contradict the Bible. It can only reinforce the Bible, and the Bible can only reinforce them. Okay, so once you get to that point, then what you can do is say, okay, so if you can't contradict the Bible, then that means we should be able to read the Bible, and I should know that the early church agrees with what this Bible says.
Hmm.
We can talk differently about the interpretation, right? So what you do at that point is take them to a part of the Bible and say, okay, here's what the Bible says. And then this is the way it'll typically play out. And say a plain reading of the text clearly indicates what we're reading. Like a fifth grader can see it. Now, ask the opponent, when you read this, what do you think it says, right? You guys can probably come to a conclusion as to what it says, right? And then you can say, okay, so I'm reading this text, and here's what it seems to mean. If you disagree with me that Leviticus 25 allows for slavery, if you don't like my interpretation of the passage, then you need to go to your church fathers and show me where they disagree. Because what typically they're going to do is they're going to give some terrible argument for why your interpretation of the Bible isn't true because you're not in apostolic succession, which means now it's you against the apostolic succession. Here's what they won't do. They won't go back to their apostolic teachings and find something that disagrees with you. They're going to say, "Well, I have to go look at that. I'm not sure what they taught." Right? Very rarely are they going to find something that actually disagrees with you because most of the early church knew that the Bible accepted slavery and they made excuses for it.
Right. And I think my frustration is just the appeal to the church fathers to begin with, because,
Hmm.
you know, they are fallible men who really had no cultural understanding of Israel or the Jews, seemingly, and they couldn't agree with one another to begin with.
Sure.
So it's like, at what point do we say that their subjective understanding of what the Old Testament says isn't sufficient?
Right. That's one thing you could do. I've started putting a list together of the disputations among the church fathers to demonstrate that
Hmm.
the church fathers literally couldn't agree on much. And so when people bring up, well, you have to appeal to the church fathers and apostolic authority on these topics because that's where the authority is. Well, at that question, you can just say, okay, well, here's where they disagreed. If they can't agree amongst themselves, if
Hmm.
they don't know the answer to these problems, then why should I believe that they have answers to the problems when they themselves are admitting that they're arguing about the answers to the problems? And typically
Right.
what it'll come down to is they'll
When the
say
Holy
something,
Ghost is supposed to be guiding them.
right.
Right.
They'll typically say something along the lines of, well, the church council put that argument away. And to me, I think that's a bad answer. You can't say that these arguments are irrelevant just because eventually there was a church council. Because if you read the writings of these councils, a lot of people like they were forced with, you will comply or we'll excommunicate you. Well,
Right.
that shouldn't be how the Holy Spirit works. The Holy Spirit shouldn't be like, I'm going to have a council, and if you disagree with me, you get excommunicated. There's, it seems like the better way is to just gradually lead to people to the same conclusion, so that they're not fighting over this for the next 2,000 years.
And because excommunication wasn't even a concept in the Old Testament or in like Jewish tradition, was it?
Um, it was the idea of being cut off was a
Uh-huh.
popular thing. If you got cut off from your community, it meant that you were typically dangerous to the community or to the community's rules and behaviors, and they would cut you off. You can see that quite a bit in the Old Testament. There's lots of rules for, if you do this or that, you'll be killed. If you do this, you'll be cut off. And so there's a distinction depending on which rule you're breaking. You could be removed from the community for a temporary or a permanent time period, or if it's really severe, you can just get murdered.
And is there like a semantic difference between like an excommunication versus like a banishment? Or are those like in that context kind of similes?
So they have the same function, but they have different weight on paper. So on paper, if you get excommunicated, it's like official. Whereas, like if you're a king, you could just banish somebody from your kingdom, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're excommunicated from the church. It
Uh-huh.
just means that you're banished, even though it ends with the same functional thing. You can't come back. But one is more of a religious situation, and one is more purely functional.
I see. Okay. And I did have one last question if I could squeeze it in, if
Yeah,
that's okay.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh, right. And so, I think about the early establishment of the Christian church and how it's very European. It's very like Roman or Grecian. And I was just wondering, kind of during the early creation of the Christian faith,
That Celsus is arguing for in the argument against Origen. So we do find some Jews in the early church that pop up because their arguments were preserved by the Christians. Um, After that, there's a really funny book you should probably check out. It's pretty cheap. It's uh, shoot, what was his name? Well, the name of the writing is called Against the Galileans. It was a fourth century emperor, Julian. There we go, Julian the heretic. He was one of
mm-hmm.
the early emperors of the Christian Roman Empire that wasn't a Christian. That's why it's called a heretic. Julian makes a really interesting argument on behalf of the Jews, and Julian classically was very sympathetic to the Jewish movement. He even allocated funds to rebuild their temple, but it didn't come to fruition. But Julian makes a really funny case that like the Christians are out of their minds because they've basically abandoned all of the hallmarks of actual Judaism and just made up their own thing.
Right.
So like his book is really fun to read. It's not long, maybe 75 pages, and it's really good.
And that is Julian repute something of the Galileans. I'm just writing that down.
Yeah, it'd be Julian against the Galileans. The
Against the
early Christian
Galileans. Okay.
Yeah, the early Christians were known as Galileans. They were not part of proper rabbinic Judaism. Proper rabbinic Judaism rejected all of these crazy messianic cults And it's kind of ironic because most of these messianic cults originated from Galilee.
Hmm.
So it was kind of like the backwaters. It's kind of like now, all these Jesus is coming back in September people. None of these people are properly educated. They're just weirdos who read the Bible with no actual training and got these crazy ideas. These
Some of the
messianic,
sticks.
yeah, these messianic movements were the same. They're just like these people kind of out in the sticks or out in these weird communes that didn't have any formal training, and they read the text a bunch and came up with crazy ideas.
Right. Oh, that is so fascinating. And I'd always wondered that, but I didn't really know where to begin kind of searching for trying to figure out what like opinions from the Jewish community was during that time. So it seems as though the earliest I'll probably be able to find would be in the second century.
Yeah, unfortunately, whatever was written about it is most likely destroyed.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you answering my questions. And Crystal, thank you again. And I will see you
Thank you so
guys
much.
later.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. We appreciate you. Joyful, I'll get right with you. I need to read a few things out. First of all, Goddess wanted to say that she forgot to tell Justin thank you. His channel has been instrumental in her husband's deconstruction. If you asked a question in the TikTok chat, I need you to put it back in because I just scrolled past all of them to get up to date. I'm so sorry. Anyway, over on YouTube, Daniel Tanner said, closeted apostate here, married to an atheist, but not comfortable coming out to my side of the family. However, it feels like I'm being dishonest. Any advice that can help move the needle for me?
Yeah, that's a tough one because like I feel like if you're like kind of stuck in the closet, there is a certain part of you that is it feels like you're being dishonest. But here's how I think we can parse it because like for example, you can be an atheist and not be public and vocal about it and not be dishonest. So for example, like when I'm with my family, I don't talk about it, I don't bring it up. But like if my niece, I have an atheist niece, if my niece asks me difficult questions about the Bible and my siblings are around, I'm going to give her honest answers. I'm not going to hide it. Like I'm not going to pretend like I don't have an answer. So in that respect, I'm completely honest. But what I don't do is go out of my way and say like, you shouldn't be everyone listening to the conversation, you shouldn't be a Christian. And I kind of let people determine on their own like what they think about me. So like, there are still people in my family that don't even know I'm an atheist because like it's not important to me that they know it. I'm way more concerned with what people are doing with the text, what people are how they're living their life. Are they harming people with the religion than I am with atheism? Like when I first started the channel, it actually wasn't about atheism. It was just about deconstructing Christianity. I kind of broadened it to atheism because like most because I first of all I am one, but also because most of the people interested in my content are in fact atheists, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. And if you're uncomfortable with people not knowing that you're an atheist, if you would prefer them to know it, then I think at some point you just have to look for opportunities to start planting seeds. When the topics come up, you can just push back a little bit and be like, well, maybe this isn't the case. Maybe there's another way to look at this, right? And so you open the door to slowly start those conversations because you got to remember, like with my deconstruction journey, it took me many years to deconstruct. Your family members are not going to accept what you're saying right away. So you have to slowly open those doors and slowly help people to walk through them. And during the course of the process, they'll figure out that you're an atheist. You don't have to come out and tell them. They'll catch it.
Okay, Joyful, how are you?
I'm doing fine. My first question is for you, Crystal.
Okay.
What gift is required to boot your guest?
Oh, this guy, he's a troll.
would be a Zeus.
Well, I can't afford that, so I'll just continue with my other questions.
Okay, all right. Go ahead and ask another question then.
All right, Justin, this is for you.
Indeed.
I watch, like, you've been a big component of my deconstruction, and I find it a little disheartening that you constantly only try to debate these lukewarm Christians, and you never debate anybody like I am his pastor. Like, I think that you've been running from him for a long time, and it's kind of disheartening.
You know what? Of the many defenders of the faith, he's the only one I'm actually scared of. I'm terrified of getting cooked by I am his pastor, and I don't think he's here right now, so I don't want to get his head real big, but I mean he's probably the best of them.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. I haven't had a chance to debate him, or I would, but I just thought you should know that, like, it's been disheartening for people like me.
He says you run from him too, Joyful. That's what he says.
Yeah, he's an idiot. I mean, he's a really good apologist. Anyway, no, but for real, I have one last question, and this is just something I've been going through. So in Romans 14, it says that if you believe something is unclean and you eat it, whether or not it is actually unclean doesn't matter. You have made yourself unclean. So essentially what it's saying is, like, if you think something is wrong and you do it, you have done something wrong, right?
It seems to be the case, yeah.
Yeah, I find it weird, and this is just something I've been thinking about lately, since I read that, is we always contribute the first sin to Eve eating the apple, but she believed that touching the apple was wrong, so the actual sin happened before she ever even ate it, right?
I mean, so there's some questions, right? Because it says in Genesis that she looked at the tree and saw that it was good for knowledge and good for food, and she desired it, right? And what I don't know is if desiring to do the thing is where the sin starts, or if eating it is where it starts.
Yeah, but Jesus said if you look at a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery.
Right, yeah, so this brings up a good question. If you put Jesus into the mix, Jesus wants to get more towards the position of the heart. And so if you're adding in this position from Jesus, then you could get yourself to a point where you're saying, well, listen, if you desire to do evil, then it's akin to doing evil.
Exactly. So
how come if you desire to do good, even though maybe you don't get a chance to, that's not as good?
Oh, yeah, interesting. Because if you desire to do good, you don't get bonus points for it. You only get points taken away if you desire to do bad.
They're both trolls. These two are trolls. Don't listen to them. They're trolls. Don't listen to either of these two. It's horrible.
Oh, well, he got raptured. Hey, Devils, how are you?
Doing great. How are you? Can you hear me all right?
Doing great. Yeah, we can. Do you have a question for Justin?
I do. And I do, again, like so many others, I just want to say thanks to you and Justin and everybody else doing this stuff in this space. I wish it had been something I was aware of when I dragged myself out of my, like, young earth creationist, homeschooled, super evangelical fundamentalist upbringing.
Oh yeah,
without any buddy to talk to about it. But yeah, anyway, luckily you could just read the Bible and it kind of falls apart if you poke too hard.
That's always been my point of view, is like, listen, if we want to deconvert people from the faith, like if we think that's the best thing to do, you just got to get them to read the book with you.
Yeah, it's amazing. But my main question is, have you ever heard any, I know there aren't really any good ones, but what's the best apologetic you've heard for divine hiddenness? Because I've never heard one that's even remotely at all satisfying, and it seems like such a huge and obvious issue that everybody just kind of hand wave. I don't know, like, it certainly never there's this nonsense about you can't really know, or it's not a free will choice, which is obviously crazy, right? But have you ever heard like a good defense of that?
I can't say there's a good one. I can tell you like what would have been said when I was in church. So when I was in church, they would say things like, well, God only reveals himself to those that are truly seeking him. And the general idea there is like divine hiddenness isn't actually a problem. The real problem is that there are people that aren't really seeking him. That's the real problem, right? And so that's typically how I've seen it done. Like they try to short circuit the argument by saying that the person is not being genuine. Um, that while that is a terrible answer, I honestly still think it's the best of the answers just because the other answers are so poor. The other answers are silly things like, well, God can't reveal himself to you because then that would negate this whole principle that you need to have faith. It says in Hebrews you can't please God without faith. But that's a horrible answer because God appeared to a bunch of the people in the Bible and all of them shows up in Hebrews chapter 11 as having great faith. So if God showing up to you negates your faith, that means Hebrews 11 is a flat lie, the entire chapter. And so like that apologetic I think falls flat on its face from the get-go. As for additional apologetics out there, I've heard other horrible ones like, well, God does reveal himself. It's just that people are looking in the wrong place. But again, that falls short because it's like, well, then God revealed himself in a way in which he knew most people wouldn't realize he was revealing himself, and he knew that it would result in people not believing, which means it's still on God. Divine hiddenness hasn't been solved yet. So like that's not a good answer either. So I still think the first one that I laid out is the only possible plausible explanation for divine hiddenness, which is in imputing the character of the person seeking.
It's a technique.
It sure
He's not
is, isn't
hiding.
it?
You're just not looking.
Exactly.
Uh, it's pretty good. Well, thank you very much for that. I was curious if there was one floating around out there. Uh, it's a little stronger.
Yeah, if there's a good one, I don't know of it.
Yeah. And the last thing I'm just curious if you have a good any book recommendations on like that's like remotely accessible. I mean, I'm a reader, so it doesn't have to be too accessible, I guess, but that kind of talks about how the Hebrew religion kind of came to be and the other religions that kind of merged into it with Yahweh and El and all. That kind of gives like a rundown of the history as best we understand it.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple books that I would start with, and there's a couple authors that I think are like just always go-to people on this topic. The first author that I would say anything he writes is worth reading, and that's going to be Mark S. Smith. And he's got a couple books on the topic. He's got one book on the origins of monotheism within ancient Israel, how they became monotheists from polytheists. There's another book that he wrote that kind of describes the God concepts that would have been accepted in the ancient world at the time of Israel called Where the Gods Are. And then he did write another book just on the origin of Yahweh. And there's others. There's a guy named John Day. John Day wrote a book called Yahweh and the Gods and Goddesses of Ancient Canaan. Excellent read. And then I would also recommend by Frank Moore Cross. He did like a collection book where multiple authors contributed to it. So it's kind of like they wrote articles and then they put it into a book. But it's called Canaanite Myth and Hebrew Epic by Frank Moore Cross. And it's got some really good articles in it about like the formation of the religious viewpoints of the early Israelites. So that's really helpful. As for the formation of the Hebrew Bible itself, you want to look to people like Joel Baden, Richard Freeman. Richard Freeman wrote two really influential books. One is called The Bible with Sources Revealed, which has got the Torah broken down into the individual sources, according to the documentary hypothesis. Joel Baden touches on this as well. I don't exactly know if Joel Baden is going to agree on every point with Richard Elliott Freeman. In fact, I kind of know he doesn't, but he's doing work on the documentary hypothesis. If you want to look at some of the original work on the documentary hypothesis, you want to look at guys like Casuto, Umberto Casuto. He's got a 6 series lecture on it that's in book format. You also want to look at some of the originals like Julian Wellhausen. He wrote on this. He's a German scholar, but you can get his stuff in English. And that gives you a good start as to how did the early literature of the Israelite people come to be? Because I think we do need to separate the early literature from the early beliefs a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah, I was familiar with some of the work about how the Bible itself came to be. It was really more the actual religion and belief system.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that. Definitely
Sure
gonna
thing.
check those out. All right, well, I'll let somebody else have a turn. Thanks so much.
All right. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for being here. We appreciate you. I don't see any questions over on YouTube right now, but I do have somebody else to bring up. Veggies, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can. Did you have a question for Justin today?
I do actually. So first off, I just want to say I love you, Crystal, and I also love you, Justin. I watch your stuff. It's very enlightening, to say the least. So I was talking with a theist the other day, and they asked me, which prophecies do I think Jesus never fulfilled? And I, maybe, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, said none of them. And they brought up this one about a donkey.
Uh-huh.
And they said that he fulfilled some prophecy about riding a donkey. And I have kind of heard about it's like one donkey that is two donkeys or something like that. I don't know. So can I possibly get a little bit more clarification on that? Because I must admit, I am very enthusiastic about this topic, but I don't know very much. So
Sure.
maybe just a debunking of the donkey prophecy would be nice.
Hey,
Yeah.
Justin, before you debunk that, let me do a quick commercial. You guys, thank you for 61,000 likes, but we need to get to 100,000 in the next half hour. And you guys stop tapping, but tapping is clapping. So please keep going. And don't forget I have a gift goal. And don't forget I have a subby goal. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all the new follows, likes. If you have a question for Justin, too shy to come up, just put it in all caps and I will read it out either on YouTube or TikTok. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, no, it's fine. The donkey prophecy is in Zechariah 9, and it's really actually a pretty simple prophecy, and you don't have to read the entire chapter to see where the problem is. If you go to the exact quotation, this is going to be quoted from Matthew chapter 2. It's quoted in Zechariah 9. It says, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you. Triumphant and victorious is he, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." And so Matthew picks this up and has Jesus coming into Jerusalem on what appears to be two donkeys because he couldn't read Hebrew, which is fine. Um, he interpreted it as two donkeys when the original had one. And whoever wrote this text obviously thinks that riding a donkey into Jerusalem was enough.
Right.
But the reality is the text doesn't say that. The text says, "Your king comes to you triumphant and victorious." So it's an actual king who's triumphant and victorious. Well, what is he triumphant over? Well, verse 9 tells you. Verse 9 says, "He will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall command peace to the nations, and his dominion will be from sea to sea, from the river to the ends of the earth." So this is a victorious, warring king, which Jesus certainly was not. And they'll say, "Yeah, but he did ride the donkey." And I'll say, "That's great. I've ridden a donkey. That doesn't mean I'm the Messiah." So you
Right.
can't take like a 3-part prophecy and be like, "Well, the easy part, the riding the donkey part, the part that everyone already did, that means he fulfilled it. That's not how that works.
Okay, yeah. So from what I understand, it's talking about a literal king. So what happens when they go, "Oh, but he was the king in heaven"?
Typically I kind of tongue in cheek will say, yeah, that's exactly what I would say if I was never a real king. I'd say some bullshit like, well, I'm a spiritual king, I'm a heavenly king. But that's not valuable because it says what he's going to do when he's king. He's going to defeat Israel's enemies, which Jesus certainly never did. And then I would take them to the other messianic prophecies, like I'm sorry, not Zechariah, Ezekiel 37, Ezekiel 36 as well, where it talks about where this king will be the king. He's going to be the king in Israel. He's going to reunite the people in Israel, right? So if Jesus wasn't a physical king in Israel, in fact, it repeats it in Micah 5:2, then he just certainly wasn't the king. But yeah, I mean, that's a really good cope if you want people to believe you're a king and you're really not.
Right. So basically, if people bring this stuff up about, especially the king stuff, because there's more than one, right, about kings, a
Hmm.
king, right? So basically, if they bring this up and you press them to show you that it means a metaphysical king instead of an actual king, that'd probably be the best way to go, right?
Yeah, and I would challenge him too. So like if they say something like, well, he's the spiritual king, he's the king of kings,
Right.
then I would just challenge him, how could you possibly prove that? Show me where he's the king, right? Because I could make the same claim. I could say, I'm the king of kings, prove me wrong. And by the same token, they can't do it. They can't prove you wrong. They can't say you're not the king of kings. They'll say
Mhm.
something dumb like, well, you can't be the king of kings because you're a human. I
Yeah.
don't know if you know this, but Jesus was a human.
Right. Okay, cool. Because yeah, I mean, how many prophecies should he have fulfilled if this was true? Is there like a number of prophecies or
I think there are a minimum of 6 different prophecies that he
uh,
has to fulfill to be the Messiah. I would include Isaiah chapter 2, Isaiah chapter 11, Micah chapter 4, Micah chapter 5, Jeremiah 33, and Ezekiel 36 and 37. If he didn't fulfill those prophecies, he's just not the Messiah.
right? Okay, so I kind of want to write this down. Can you do me the biggest favor and repeat
Sure.
those? Yeah.
Yeah. Check out Isaiah chapter 2, Isaiah chapter 11, and then take a look at Micah chapter 4, Micah chapter 5. And then also take a look at Ezekiel chapter 36 and Ezekiel chapter 37.
Okay, Ezekiel 36 and 37. Okay, cool. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
did I say Jeremiah 33?
Oh, I think you did. Yeah,
Okay.
Jeremiah 33, you said?
Hmm.
Not was a bullfrog?
Well, I mean, maybe.
Maybe. All right, cool. Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for being here, Veggies. We appreciate you. I got a question the from the TikTok chat. It's from Randy Fitz, and it says, Justin, what month do you want to be in the TikTok deconstruction calendar?
Oh boy. I don't know. Good question. Easter month.
Okay, Easter. Doing
Pretty
well.
good. How are
Welcome
you?
to the show. Did you have a question for Justin today?
I did. Thanks for having me up, and thanks, Justin, for giving us a time to just ask questions. I have two quick ones for you, and I promise you I won't take too much of your time.
Sure.
So I wanted to know, like, what are your, I guess, like, what would you say would be good rebuttals? All right, not, I guess not even rebuttals, but maybe more of like counter arguments. I'm not phrasing it correctly. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Uh, for the resurrection, because I think that I've heard a few, and I don't feel like I've heard your take on it yet. And so I was just curious on like how would you approach the conversation about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, since it's the it's the foundation of Christian faith.
So I typically approach it like this. I ask them to present me an argument for why I should accept it as true, because it's not my job to prove that somebody didn't resurrect. It's up to them to prove that they did resurrect. So I would start by putting the burden on them, because like you can't go back in history and disprove a mythological claim. That's this is a stupid thing. It's kind of like go back and prove that Tooth Fairy didn't put money under my pillow. I saw the money there. Prove that it wasn't her, right? So it's just a silly thing. But what they're going to do is they're going to pivot to like dumb arguments like, well, the disciples wouldn't have died for a lie. Not even a problem. We all know people that were willing to die for religious claims that certainly weren't true. We know there are people that were willing to die even in modern times for religious claims that weren't true. Think of the Islamic martyrs. Think of Joseph Smith. Both Joseph Smith and his brother died for Mormonism. And think of like the cults, like the Jim Jones, David Koresh, different people like that, Marshall Applegate. So like
Heaven's
there's
Gate.
yeah. So there's lots of examples of people dying for their faith. And then you could say, well, there were eyewitnesses. That's adorable that you think there were eyewitnesses. There certainly don't seem to be any of them, but that does get you into a long drawn out conversation about whether or not the gospels contain any eyewitness accounts. And to that I would just plainly point out that I don't think eyewitness testimonies mean anyone rose from the dead. And the reason why is because I've got similar eyewitness testimonies for other resurrection accounts. I've got eyewitness testimony for Aristeas. I got eyewitness testimony for Nero. I got eyewitness testimony for Alcestis. I got eyewitness testimony for other people who claim to resurrect from the dead, and they don't believe the Christian doesn't believe that they resurrected from the dead based on these eyewitness testimonies, right? So what that tells me is that Christians are special pleading. They're saying the eyewitness testimony for my resurrected guy is more important than the eyewitness testimony for all these other people that resurrected, right? And then I would just press them on that. Give me a reason why I should prioritize your resurrection eyewitness testimony over all the others.
All right, I appreciate that. And then my second question would be, and it goes, I think you might have addressed it earlier, so I do apologize. I was listening in and out. There's a lot of noise where I am right now. But I've had conversations with Christians who tell me, like, why should we accept your interpretation of the text over the interpretation of, like, the church fathers or the people that supposedly wrote those letters? And so what would you say to that?
So when people are arguing over interpretation, I typically do one of two things. Is I bring them to the text and I force them to give me their interpretation. I say, okay, we're going to read the text. You tell me what you think it means. And they're going to do one of two things. They're going to make up some bad interpretation, most likely. And then you can just be like, well, did you come to that interpretation by using your own mind, or did you use the church fathers to come to that interpretation? Most people are going to say that they came to that interpretation using their own reasoning faculties, right? And then automatically they're on equal footing with you, and then you can demonstrate to them why their interpretation fails. Some people might actually give you interpretations from the church fathers. Almost none of them can do it. Most people who believe in the church fathers haven't read the church fathers. But one of the things that you can do is open up the church fathers and say, show me whose interpretation is better than mine so we can read it together. And that usually stops them in their tracks. They can't do it. They can't show you where the church fathers disagree. And typically, what you'll discover, especially when you're reading the Old Testament, is like when you pull up interpretations by the church fathers, like a lot of times they don't even think it's a real story. They're like, oh, it's not even a real story, it's all allegory. So that stops them in their tracks. A lot of Christians don't think that it's allegorical, they think that they're literal stories. So when you show them, like, yeah, these early church fathers didn't even believe Adam and Eve existed, like they don't want to do that. They're wading in deep, deep waters they had no idea were there, and they're going to get lost pretty quick.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for.
Sure thing, buddy.
Yes. stuff.
Dark, thanks for being here. If you guys are not following Dark Knight, you should be. He has been on my show before, and hopefully he'll be back in a few months to join me again. He goes live and has wonderful conversations. Make sure you follow Dark Knight. Hey, Creed, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Good to see you, buddy.
Did you have a question for Justin?
I did a quick one, I think really quick.
Okay.
Okay, so Justin, do you believe that the apostles or the Gospels at least thought Jesus would come back in this generation?
I believe that it depends on what you think the authentic writings in the New Testament are, but like it seems to be in almost every book of the New Testament, they were expecting Jesus to be returning very soon. And like we find it in Thessalonians, we find it in Corinthians, we find Jesus himself in the book of Revelation. Jesus says in multiple occasions on chapter 20 that I am near. I am coming very soon. And so when I'm reading the New Testament, I have no reason to believe that they thought that he wasn't coming. Like even in Hebrews, in the book of Hebrews, at the end of chapter 10 somewhere, the author says that the day of his coming is drawing near. Wait, what? What? When? 2,000 years later? What's the point of this statement if you didn't think Jesus is coming imminently?
Okay, I was just wondering because in Acts 2, Peter says that the gift of the Holy Spirit would be accessible to all future generations, which doesn't make a lot of sense. It's going off the New Testament, other writings like Paul and the Gospels.
What do you mean?
In Acts 2, it talks about how the gift of the Holy Spirit would be available for all future generations.
Mm-hmm.
Peter says that.
I don't know what you mean. You mean the generations past the first generation?
Yes.
You're saying if Jesus was coming back, then why would the gifts be available for like all these future generations?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know of that passage. So the passage in Acts chapter 2 about the gifts, I'm not
Baptism.
sure it mentions anything about future generations.
Well, I'm gonna read it to you. I'm not trying to trick you. I think it's a sign that it was written probably later. When do you think
Well,
Acts was written?
Acts and Luke were certainly written later. I mean, that's no doubt. That's why, so in the book of Acts, they have to tone down the Jesus coming soon part. They even tone down the second coming, right? When in the book of Luke's, when it talks about the coming of the kingdom, they change it. They'll say, you won't see the kingdom coming. You won't say, look, there it is, or see, there it is, because it's already in your midst. So the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts, which is written later, are already kind of dealing with this idea of like the kingdom hasn't come yet, and what are we doing about this?
I'm trying to find the verse. Okay, so it says, "For the promise is for you and your children, for all who are far away, as many as the Lord our God will call to Himself." That's what He says.
Yeah.
Well, that's just
baptized.
as many as the God will call to himself. So that could be two. And that could be, like that's not saying all future generations, right?
Yeah, and what verse are you reading?
It's Acts 2:38-39.
Acts 2:38. Let's see what it says. It says, Peter said to them, repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, so that your sins may be forgiven, and you will receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. The promise is for you, for your children, and for all who are far away. Yeah, so it's just, this is not a future generational promise, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to debate. I was just kind of confused maybe when this was written.
That's okay.
Maybe
No, fair enough.
Well, thanks, Justin. I'm going to go now.
All right, cheers,
Thank you, Creed. Thanks for coming up. We appreciate you. Hey, Cligaboo. I'm not sure if I said that right. I muted you because you have background noise, so I'm going to send you an invite to unmute. Hi, how are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Did you have a question for Justin? Oh, wait, before we continue, Justin, we are getting close. Do you have time to stay a little bit extra, like a half hour total extra?
Yeah, my hard cutoff is a pinch after 5 because I got to go get ready, eat some food, and get ready for my own live stream.
Okay, sounds good. All right, go ahead, Cligaboo. So we're going to have Randy be the last one, but if Cligaboo and Randy want to stay up after they ask questions, we're going to play Divine or Decline after that. So go ahead, Cligaboo.
Yeah, I just had a question about. I heard a argument from Carrier about whose tomb was Jesus placed in? Joseph of Arimathea?
Well, I don't think he was placed in a tomb personally. I think he was probably thrown into a mass grave.
So okay, so the name, I heard that the name that was given to Joseph of Arimathea, that in Greek means like good discipleville or something.
I mean, it typically it is translated as like something high or elevated, like a high place.
Okay.
So to be sure, Joseph of Arimathea is a fictional entity. Like
Yeah.
it's a story plot device. I agree with Richard on this. By the way, I haven't read all of his works, but I kind of know the argument he's making. I agree with him on this particular point. I think Joseph of Arimathea was a plot device. I don't think he was real.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just for other reasons, but I was wondering if the point he made about his name being like a combination of different words that were something like a good discipleville or something. I was wondering if there was anything to that.
I don't know because I'd have to look into the linguistics of his name, and I haven't actually done that before. So if I made an argument based on the linguistics of Arimathea, I think I'd be giving you a hasty answer. I can't
Okay.
say that that's something that I've already done yet, but um, typically if it's like a Hebrew name, I can give you something on the spot, but my understanding of Greek is not as good as my understanding of Hebrew because I studied the Old Testament.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. It's like when New Testament scholars that clearly didn't spend a lot of time in the Hebrew start talking about Hebrew, sometimes it shows. And when people who studied Hebrew in the Old Testament start talking about Greek, it certainly shows. So I don't want to embarrass myself by trying to make an argument from the Greek without having looked into it.
I got you. Yeah. Well, I don't know either. So I really appreciate your time.
Sure thing. Yeah, good question though. And there have been a lot of articles written on this particular topic. So if somebody's interested in this, like even a quick Google search will pull up some decent articles on it.
Good deal.
And you know what, Cligaboo, I don't know if you watched Jaron Christ Before Jesus, but he also has a very interesting take on this. So you might check him out sometime or go up and ask him your question because he has a little different take on the whole Joseph of Arimathea story.
Okay, what's the name?
His name is Christ Before Jesus on this app, but his actual name's Jaron, Jaaron, and he wrote the book with his friend Matthew called Christ Before Jesus.
Okay, good deal. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you so
problem.
much.
Thanks
Y'all
for
have a
being
good day.
here. We will. You too. Bye-bye. Hey, Randy, how are you today? Randy, are you with us? Do I need to send you an invite to unmute? No, there you are.
Oh yeah, I'm back. Good to talk to you, Crystal. Justin, much respect for your live. My question is about how much knowledge you have and how patient you are dealing with most of us TikTokers who are on Mount Stupid on the Dunning-Kruger curve. My question to you is, does it frustrate you when you're talking to somebody who is at the beginning of their journey learning about a lot of this stuff, and yet they don't really respect how much you really know, and not only not know, but to teach some of the theists a lot about their own Bible, and yet you do it with such respect, and then they don't give you any respect back or any kind of great gratitude for what you're teaching them, does that ever bug you? Because you do it, it seems, without any kind of second thought, and it's just so amazing.
That's an interesting point. So here's kind of how I feel it, right? To me, I think this is such an interesting topic that like even the stuff that I learned as a beginner is still so interesting to me. And like I still have memories of when I first learned it and how it like really changed my thinking and formed my kind of formed my opinion. And so when I hear somebody else asking that same question, I kind of get a little bit of excitement. I'm like, oh, this is a person that's they're on the journey. Now, realistically, a lot of the people I'm debating are not on the journey. They're here to fight, and that's okay. That happens. I was maybe a little combative at the beginning of my journey as well, but like to be honest, like a lot of it is just because I love the topic so much that like I get excited to talk about it. And so it's kind of like they always say, you know, do the thing you love and you'll never work a day in your life. To me, it's
Right.
kind of like that. This is the most interesting, fun thing I could ever get to talk about for me personally. So when I find somebody at the beginning stages, like it doesn't bother me because I'm like, oh, this is a really cool opportunity to talk about this one thing. Now, I would say that some topics come up so often that they can get maybe a little bit boring, and that happens. You know, it is one of those things. But I think it kind of comes with the territory. I think if you're in this space and you're and you can't handle beginner questions, then I don't know. Maybe reevaluate if you belong in education.
Yeah, it just the respect you give to those I can tell are still on that, early point of the curve. It just amazes me. And then the very next caller, you're like, like PhD level conversations, and it just you handle it with the same respect and value to the person you're talking to, that it floors me sometimes, and I appreciate that element of you. So thank you for that.
Hey, thanks, Randy. I appreciate the kind words.
And then
And I am trying to always get better. I get negative feedback after some of the shows, and a lot of times I deserved it. Sometimes I get out of pocket, but I think as a community, as long as we're all trying to get better, I think we're going good places.
yeah,
We
and
like
we've talked about
spicy Justin, okay? We like that to come out now and then. It's fun.
and
It's
Crystal.
my favorite when you call somebody a motherfucker. I'm like, yeah. No, I'm sorry.
That's when you know I've had enough. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, have another sip of Kraken and tell them again. No.
And Crystal, we've talked about how this community, how everybody brings their own kind of flavor to the conversation, and you can gain so much. I mean, Jaron versus Ian versus Mezzo and Joel, like it's just Dr. Blitz and everybody, even born again atheist. I mean, you can get whatever you want, and and it's all the right message, and it's all going the right direction, and that's why the calendar is so important. We got to get you on there.
I'll do a spread.
Okay, Randy, don't go anywhere. We're about ready to play Divine or Decline. You're going to play with us, right?
Okay, I've never done it, but okay.
Okay.
I believe in you.
Play. Lopes has a question, but I'm just going to bring him up to play the game and ask the question. Let's see who else I can pull up here. Buddy, are you going to come up and play? I'm going to invite you. Let's see.
I can't believe I'm playing Divine or Decline with Justin. I'm so nervous.
Do not be
every
nervous.
single time. I lose. I always lose.
It's a hard game. I miss a bunch.
I'm inviting a few of you to come up. You don't have to accept, but Denise, why can't I invite you? I can't invite Denise. Denise, you're invited though. And Sunny, do you want to come up? I can't invite Sunny either. All right, if you want to come up, I have room for one or two more of you. Doug, you come on up. Okay. All righty. So, Lobes, ask your question, and then we'll play our game.
Hey, sorry. So I'm in the break room. I have like less than 10 minutes. But Justin,
No
I was going to
problem.
ask, what was the hardest Bible question you had to answer, or the hardest thing you had to encounter during your deconstruction?
I think maybe the most difficult thing in my deconstruction um, was trying to figure out where Jesus fit in, because even early on, the Trinity didn't make sense. And I remember having a conversation when I had finished Bible college and I was getting ready to go into seminary. I had a friend that was getting ready to graduate from seminary, and we were kind of having a conversation. I was like, you know what? Like, it got onto the topic of the Trinity, and I was like, I don't think the Trinity makes a lot of sense. Like, I feel like Jesus makes more sense as like a son of God, like an adopted son of God, or like a character that God made his son, than to be an actual part of God. Like, there's just too many problems with the Trinity. And then like there was no good answer for that. And then you get to the part where like, okay, well, this is a Messiah. The Messiah doesn't have to be God, but then he doesn't fulfill the messianic prophecies, and you're like, well, fuck, what did he do, right? So like the hardest thing for me during my deconstruction was be like, why did Jesus even need to exist? It's such an unnecessary story. The whole thing doesn't need to exist. God could have just come down from heaven and said, hey guys, I'm going to punish you if you don't shape up, and then that's it. Or he could have just come down and forgiven everybody. He didn't have to do the bloodbath.
Well, that's if you assume he's all powerful, which I to think so.
Well, that's the craziest thing is they want to claim that Jesus or that God is all powerful, but then at every turn they limit his power trying to rationalize Jesus.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, with the Trinity, I justified it, but because I asked questions because it doesn't make sense, obviously. And I was asking these questions to like my pastor, my parents, and the answer that they gave me, which was embarrassingly satisfying, was, "Well, yeah, nobody understands the Trinity." And I was like, "Oh,
exactly.
Okay,
Yes, like you just have to accept that it's some kind of divine mystery beyond your understanding, and that answer only works if you're already a Christian. But if you're not a Christian,
Yep,
it's a
that's
silly answer.
absolutely right.
Yes, see,
Absolutely
Yeah,
I
right.
have a hard
absolutely.
time. I was a Trinitarian, and I don't think it's hard to understand. And I don't think it's any more ridiculous than anything else in the Bible. You're hard on the Trinitarians. Like, I grew up. It was just always part of my
Okay, so then
Christianity.
how did you understand it? Because you're saying it wasn't hard to understand, but
Have you ever
it doesn't
heard
make
the
sense.
example? Have you ever heard the example with either the egg or the apple or the water?
Yeah, they're all heresies. It all falls into modalism or partialism, both of them condemned by the church.
I don't think I understood that.
Yeah, so when you use the egg example, what you're saying is that God has parts, meaning like the shell is part of the whole egg, or the yolk is part of the whole egg. But you can't do that with Christianity, because in Christianity you have to say that Jesus the man is the whole egg. He's 100% the God, Jesus the man. He's not part of God, because then you have a problem with divine simplicity. So there's a even as early as Theodosius II, there's edicts declaring that partialism is a heresy because it denies Jesus as being 100% God. If God has parts, that means Jesus is only 1/3 divine.
Well, what about the H2O argument
Right.
that
That
H2O can be liquid, gas, or solid?
right. So that falls into modalism. Modalism is an idea that is held by the Pentecostals. They call it the oneness theory. And the problem with modalism is it assumes that when Jesus was on the earth, that he wasn't in heaven, right? Because if Jesus transforms from the spiritual God to the earthly God, that means the earthly God is all there is, right? So, for example, water can't be water and ice at the same time. Water can't be vapor and ice at the same time. It can only be one of those things at once, which means if God can only be one of those things at a time, he can either be God in heaven as the Father or he could be God on earth as the Son. That means Jesus was praying to nobody in heaven.
Okay. No, I can accept that because I get kind of annoyed at you sometimes when you're so hard on the Trinity, just because
Well,
I
I
believe
think
it and I feel like it made sense to me.
my biggest problem with the Trinity is if you're saying God or Jesus is all God and all man, then you can't be, because you cannot be all man and actually go through the suffering, the doubt, the confusion, the things that we go through as a human being, if you know at any minute you can invoke godly powers. You literally cannot go through what we go through. If you know, I can snap my fingers and change everything, then you're not human. Because as a human, I literally cannot do that. And that's the way he was.
That all makes sense. I'll stop. Like, see, I've been criticizing you, Justin. Like, why is he being such a dick?
That's so funny.
I get worked up listening to you talk about it sometimes. So no, that's really helpful. My daughter came home from volunteering for a vacation Bible school and said to me, she's an atheist, but she was volunteering at a church. And she said, Mom, they teach this kids that says 1 + 1 + 1 = 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's kind of what the Trinity is, right?
Yeah, you're right. Okay, thank you, Justin.
All right, you guys, we're going to play everybody's favorite game, Divine or Decline. If you're a subscriber of my channel, you are one of the Dark Crystals. And I'm going to go ahead and mute you, Lobes. Okay. And drop the stickers, the Divine or Decline stickers in the chat. That's how you're going to answer. If it is from the Bible, you're going to say Divine. The Bible I use is the New American Standard Bible because it is copyright free. I also use the 1830 Book of Mormon for Decline and the Quran because those are also copyright free. So, Divine, it's from the Bible. Decline, it's from the Quran, the Book of Mormon, or I made it up, okay? And I play poker. You're going to get nothing from me. You're not going to know, okay? So don't try to read my face. Not going to help you. There are no points. Everybody loses because these things all were, made to sound exactly alike. So I'm going to start with Doug, and I'll come down to Justin, and you'll just answer Divine or Decline, okay? Yesterday we had little issues with that. People didn't understand.
I got it. So it's
Yesterday was
Decline,
hilarious.
Divine, or random sentence. I got it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here we go. A fool's lips bring strife, and his mouth invites beatings. Doug, Divine or Decline?
Decline.
All right, Randy.
I think Divine.
All right, Aaron.
Decline.
Okay,
That's a tough one.
Justin.
It really sounds like a quote from the Proverbs, so I'm going Divine.
It is from Proverbs. That's Proverbs 18:6. So that is Divine. Hey, Matthew. All right, here we go. Number 2. Better is one handful with rest than 2 fists full of toil and striving after wind. Doug.
Oh, that's tough. I'm going to say Decline again.
All right, Randy.
I'm going Decline as well. I think you made that one up.
Okay, Aaron.
Decline.
All right, Justin.
That's a tough one because part of that is quoted in Ecclesiastes, but I don't think that's how the quote goes. I think it's a modified quote. I could be wrong, but I'm going with Decline.
All right, you should have said Divine. It is Ecclesiastes.
Oh, damn it.
You just don't. It's just that New American Standard translation that got you.
Yeah, I've
But
never
that
studied
was
the New American
Ecclesiastes.
Standard.
Yeah, it's not a great translation. I'll just. It's not a great one.
It's hard to know sometimes because we all have our pet translations, and when it doesn't match, you're like, wait a minute, is Crystal making up a new verse, or is it slightly differently translated?
Okay, here we go. Number 3. He who keepeth counsel shall rule wisely, but he who loveth many words shall stumble in darkness. Doug.
It sounds like a different version of a verse that I would have read in the ESV. I'm going to go with Divine.
Okay, Randy.
Decline.
All right, Aaron.
Decline.
Can I
Justin?
hear it one more time?
Sure. He who knoweth counsel shall rule wisely, but he who loveth many words shall stumble in darkness.
I feel like this is a quote from the Book of Mormon, Decline.
Okay, it's a quote from the Book of Crystal that is Decline, and that was just made up bullshit.
That was a good one, though.
So just to be
Well,
clear,
it's all
I'm
made up
making sure
bullshit.
that I get none of them right. That's my goal.
Okay, that is a good goal. All right, number 4. Do not say, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask about this. Doug.
I'm going for wrong answers only. I'm going to decline that one.
Okay, Randy.
All right, I'm going divine because Doug went decline.
Okay, Aaron.
I knew you were picking opposite of me.
Feels familiar, so I'm going to say divine.
All right, Justin.
I am going to go again with decline.
All right, that one was divine. That is Ecclesiastes 7:10.
Did not see that one
All
coming.
right.
I'm doing beautifully.
You're doing great, Doug. You keep up the good work. You're proving to all of us that you don't give a shit about these scriptures.
I'm proving that
Okay.
I'm very, the things I've learned is very specific. Like I'm having a hard time translating it in my brain to American Standard.
All right,
Well, the
number
comments she
5.
used the King James, I would have this game. But she used it.
All right, the wicked are like a storm-tossed sea, for it cannot be quiet, and its waters toss up refuse and mud. Doug.
Pass. You're
not allowed to do that.
I'm going to say divine.
All right,
All right, I gotta
Randy.
Decline.
All right,
Decline.
Aaron. Okay, Justin.
Okay, so this sounds, and I don't know if I'm right because there's a couple words in here that I'm questioning, but it sounds like a quote from my favorite prophet Isaiah. Tell me I'm right.
You are right. That is Isaiah
thank goodness.
57:20. Good job. Good job.
I was like, if it's not Isaiah, it's got to be something that was like robbed from Isaiah and changed.
Nah.
I said decline, right? So I'm still on my streak?
I think you're still on your streak as far as I know. I don't keep score, so I trust you.
No, I'm keeping score. He said divine. You missed that one, Doug.
Oh, shit.
Oh, good job, Randy, for catching
Well, I'm a
him
failure
on
now.
that. Okay, here we go. Number 6. He who hides hatred has lying lips, and he who spreads slander is a fool. Doug.
I mean, it sounds like a proverb, so I'm going to go divine.
All right, Randy.
I think divine too.
All right, Aaron.
I have no idea, so decline.
I'm with Aaron.
Justin.
I'm on decline.
All right, that is divine. That is Proverbs 10:18.
I'm coming back.
You're coming back. You're making a comeback here. All right, number 7. Wisdom is a lamp unto the path, but folly is as a fire that consumes the house of the slothful. Doug.
The house of what?
The slothful.
Slothful. I don't think... I'm going to go with decline.
All right, Randy.
I agree. Decline.
Okay, Aaron.
Decline.
Can I hear the quote again?
Yeah. Wisdom is a lamp unto the path, but folly is as a fire that consumes the house of the slothful.
I think the biblical version says lamp unto thy feet. So that's why I think it's decline. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's so hard because like there's a whole proverb dedicated. There's 2 different proverbs dedicated to sloth and one dedicated to wisdom and folly, and so it sounds like it comes from the proverbs, but I don't know because I can't put it together. I'm gonna go divine, but I can't. My brain can't pinpoint where exactly the verses came from.
It came from Crystal's head, and she just like
Damn
mixed
it.
a bunch of shit up.
Yes.
You got me, Crystal.
Decline.
You got me.
Ashera said, this game is a lot faster today than yesterday. Yes, it is. Yesterday we had a guest on that just could not grasp the concept of this game, and he felt that if he said something was divine, that I was backing him into some kind of like corner, you know, like making him think that he had to agree with the text. And I was like,
So-
no, it's just.
So I think what's happening now is you felt so bad for me that you're actually changing this on the fly to help me win. So that's great. I appreciate it.
All right, number 8. All the toil of a person is for his mouth, and yet his appetite is not satisfied. Doug.
I hate to do this, but one more time.
Yep. All the toil of a person is for his mouth, and yet his appetite is not satisfied.
Sounds biblical, but I'm going to go with decline. It just sounds a little off.
All right, Randy.
Divine.
All right, Aaron.
Decline.
Justin.
It feels divine. I'm going divine.
It is divine. That's Ecclesiastes again. 6, 7.
Do you have a New Testament? I'm just curious.
Yes, I do have a New Testament.
Doug's
know that a little better.
but that's Old Testament. That's Old Testament.
That's right. We're not in that dispensation right now.
That was in the Old Testament. We don't give a shit about the Old Testament. I don't know all of Joel's songs. I just hear them in my head whenever you guys say certain words. I have the AI thing built in now into my brain. Okay. The earth is spread as a carpet, and the mountains are set as pegs that you may walk with certainty. Doug. Hey, Joel.
I'm gonna be very confident and say divine.
All right, Randy.
I go divine as well.
Okay, Aaron.
Decline.
Justin.
It's a tough one because there's like very similar quotes in Job, and there's also similar quotes from like the Quran. So I'm like, I don't know, but I'm gonna go decline.
All right, that is decline. That is Quran 78, 6, and 7. All right, you guys, this is number 10, the final question of the day. It's for all the marbles. Anybody who gets this right wins the game and gets eternal life, okay, in Doug's Heavenly Rock Garden. Okay, here we go. Cursed is the sluggard, for his fields bring forth briars, but the diligent shall sit in safety. Doug.
Let's see, the last one was a Quran. Would you have gone back, or are you trying to trick me? Yeah, I'm trying to play the player right now.
He's metagaming.
Yeah. So, do you think it's right? I'm just kidding. Divine.
All right, Randy.
Divine.
All right, Aaron.
I just want to say I feel like this is one of Paul's writings because I want to know if I'm right. Divine.
Okay, Justin.
I'm torn. Can I hear it one last time?
Yep. Cursed is the sluggard, for his fields bring forth briars, but the diligent shall sit in it safety.
I'm torn because I know Proverbs 26 talks about sluggards, but I don't think that quote is in there. I'm going to go decline.
You're right. It is decline. That was made up by me, you guys. That is today's episode of Divine or Decline. I hope you enjoyed losing my fun game. I enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed making you guys play it.
Well, based on that game, I'm definitely not going to eternity. So I'm done for.
Crystal, how long did it take you to make up some of those? Those are pretty clever.
I usually do them like the night before, actually, and I've done a lot of them now, so I'm pretty quick at it. So, but yeah, it's fun.
Can I
Hey,
make
can I?
some verses and send them to you?
Yeah, actually, you guys can join my Discord and give me suggestions right in my Discord. So join my Discord. I think the link's in my bio for that one too.
If you wanted to even spice it up more, because ChatGPT is like the hot dog, you know, you could also say, or did ChatGPT make it up? You could add that if you wanted to.
Oh yeah, that would be good. Well, we've thought of doing some bonus rounds where you guys, if you could get bonus points if you tell me where it's from, you know.
Ooh.
So that would be a tough one. Okay, Justin, when do you go live? What time do you go live?
Shoot, I'm going to be live here tonight at 6 p.m. And then I'll be hosting on the Atheist Experience this Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In fact, almost every Sunday this month I'll be hosting on the Atheist Experience, and then I'll be on next weekend. I'll be on the line with Forrest Valkai. But
Oh,
other than
that
that,
sounds like a great episode. Oh my gosh.
it's going to be the After Dark episode too, which means we're
Oh.
gonna get some really fun calls in the After Dark show. But anyways, so my schedule right now is basically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on my channel, and then Sundays kind of as they happen.
Awesome. All right, you guys, so make sure that you tune in to Justin at 6 p.m. And I will be live again on Sunday at 11 a.m. right after Ask with Mezzo. That's Atheist Sunday School, for all of you who don't know. Join Mezzo first, and then at 11 a.m. Pacific time, come over here and join me. I will be live with Jay Gilmore, also known as Javarius, and come join us for another Decon Q&A with CrystalJae. The rest of my schedule, I don't remember right now, and I'm not going to look it up for you, so just join me Sunday. But Justin, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate you. I love doing this every few months with you, and I hope you have a good time when you join the show. I certainly do.
Crystal, it's a blast, and thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Justin.
I really appreciate it. Aaron, thank you for coming up. And Randy, you too, thank you so much for coming up. You guys, thank you for the 79,000 likes, for all the gifts, for all the shares, and for all the new